Chapter 38-41. But the atonement I promised you is to apply the medicine for you personally. Yi-Ching Luo replied decisively, her brows arched. Do you feel that I'm very sincere? Do you feel extremely touched? Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up into an arc, which made him look noble and elegant. You know very well what I want. He continued to stare at her. His gaze was burning, the meaning was clear. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly pressed her body towards his direction. Dmo Xian's hand, which was holding her, loosened slightly. The young lady had already pushed his hand down, pressing it on the bed. Following that, a warm and soft fingertip pressed on the greenish-black palm print on his shoulder. The cold medicinal powder was sprinkled down. Dmo Xian's shoulder trembled slightly. He lifted his eyes and saw the young lady's flawless face at a close distance. That thick and long eyelashes projected down her eyelids, but it still couldn't cover the young lady's sparkling eyes. He didn't move. He allowed the young lady to apply the medicine for him. Yi-Ching Luo's actions were very fast. She bandaged Dmo Xian in a few moments. She had just put down the bandage in her hand. Her wrist was held by Dmo Xian. She looked towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian smiled. Bandage done, then. What's next? Yi-Ching Luo looked at the big palm which held her wrist, and then looked at his shoulder. There was no shyness on her face, instead there was some mischievousness. Looking at her expression, Dmo Xian vaguely sensed that something was wrong. He heard the young lady said with a smile, looks like Xian still understands me very well, knowing to take the initiative to request, then I won't stand on ceremony. Saying that, her hands had already landed on his open robe. Gently tugging. The originally loose robe was slid to the two sides. Yi-Ching Luo lifted both his arms out of his sleeves. Dmo Xian's upper body was completely exposed. Every inch of lines, every inch of muscles, was reflected in Yi-Ching Luo's eyes. Yi-Ching Luo swept a glance up and down. After confirming that Dmo Xian's body only had that injury on his shoulder, she then felt relieved. Then she picked up Dmo Xian's robe and threw it on his body, covering up that part of his muscular body which was tempting her to commit. Dmo Xian propped himself up and wrapped an arm around her waist. His chest, which was only separated by a piece of robe, was very close to her delicate body. That's it. He lifted his lower lip, and his voice was filled with laughter. Feeling the heat coming from the man, Yi-Ching Luo wanted to struggle. Seems like I've stirred up some fire. When he saw the person in his arms, his body stiffened. Dmo Xian couldn't help but curled his lips upwards as his smile deepened. The little fellow was so mischievous. She even dared to tease him. If he didn't teach her a lesson, perhaps the little fellow would have to play the same trick again in the future. Play once, this is called fun. If he played it more often. He did not think that he could maintain his self-control in front of her. Thinking like this, the man's eyes darkened. He suddenly flipped over. Yi-Ching Luo only felt that the world was spinning and her back was pressed against the soft mattress. And above, the man's warm breath was spraying down. Her and Dmo Xian's position had been switched. She blinked her eyes as a layer of crimson finally surfaced on her cheeks. Her little hands lifted up and pressed against the man's chest. But because of Dmo Xian's sudden action, the robe that covered his body had long fallen to the side. Yi-Ching Luo's hand fell on the man's firm skin. The strong and firm touch brought with it a scalding heat. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but withdrew her hand. *****. Chapter 38-42. This posture was very dangerous. The heat from the man's body said it all. Yi-Ching Luo tried her best to show an innocent look as she blinked her eyes. She only cared about flirting with men. But she had forgotten that this man in front of her, on the surface, looked like a large puppy. But at some point, he would transform into a wolf dog. The moment he touched her, something happened. Dmo Xian's eyes, which were as deep as a serene lake, looked deeply into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Looking at Yiqing Luo's widened and innocent expression, the corners of his mouth rose unconsciously. His body leaned down a little more. The scorching breath drew closer to the young girl. It was so close that the girl's pupils dilated slightly. Luo, has it been too long since I've used my actions to tell you not to provoke him easily? He chuckled softly. His voice was a little hoarse, and it was very pleasant to hear. His faint magnetism tugged at her heartstrings. Yiqing Luo felt that her heart was almost out of control. Following the man's large palm, he followed the lines of her delicate body, moving up bit by bit. Yiqing Luo's body tensed up even more. The place where his large palm brushed, it trembled slightly. It was like a stream of fire igniting her body and mind. His kiss fell on her. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she closed her eyes. But he closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. There was no man's warm and soft touch on her lips. On the contrary, the ball of warmth on her body also turned over and landed next to her. Yiqing Luo was stunned and slightly dazed. The eyes moved and opened. Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles and the corners of his lips were curled into a teasing arc. That ridiculing smile made Yiqing Luo's cheeks flush red. You. Was she being flirted with? With a hook of his long arm, he pulled her into his embrace. He laughed softly. I know you're tired. Have a good rest. After a few consecutive battles, in a moment of desperation, he unleashed a power that exceeded what his body could withstand. Then, he broke through again. Anyone would feel physically and mentally exhausted. How could Dmo Xian possibly request Yiqing Luo to satisfy him at this moment? No, he was simply hugging her. They hugged each other and slept together. His heart was already satisfied. Feel the man's scorching love, and for her concern. Yiqing Luo's brows were tainted with a gentle glow. She buried her head in his chest and put one hand on his waist. Just as he closed his eyes, his heart filled with happiness. Dmo Xian's magnetic and mellow voice rang in her ears, when I'm well rested, I'll be waiting for your atonement. Yiqing Luo, feeling the girl in his arms stiffen, he smiled and said, don't forget what I said before. If you start a fire, you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Yiqing Luo, could this joke ever get over it? His body and mind were indeed exhausted. This rest. He rested until the next morning. By the time Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, the man was no longer by her side. He reached out to touch the side of his body. It was cold, which meant that he had been awake for a long time. She sat up straight and saw the bandage hanging on the side. It seemed that Dmo Xian had changed the medicine himself. She rubbed her face. Only by Dmo Xian's side. She slept like a log. She didn't even notice that Dmo Xian had woken up and left. Yiqing Luo got up and changed into a new set of clothes from the profound phoenix ring. After washing up, she walked out of the room. The room that Patriarch Qiao had arranged for her and Dmo Xian was the quietest. When she walked out of the courtyard. Chapter 38-43. Kitty Lee smelled Yiqing Luo's scent and was the first to jump up and pounce towards her. Sister. Yiqing Luo hugged her. The few of them also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Have you recovered? Jun Qingwu looked at Yiqing Luo from head to toe. Yiqing Luo nodded. After a nap, my body and mind are relaxed. TSK. That's because you don't know what the Overlord did for you after you fell asleep. Zhou Mo's sloppy voice was heard. What did this mean? Zomo rubbed his chin and gave a playful smile. Your overlord, after you fell asleep, gave you a full body check. His voice dragged on with a hint of mockery. Jun Qingwu directly threw the teacup in her hand towards Zomo. Zomo raised his palm and split the teacup open. Don't say it's so dirty. Jun Qingwu shot a glance at him and then looked at Yi Qing Luo as she explained, the overlord said that you had expended too much energy in the array. Even if you managed to grab hold of the opportunity to break through, the energy after the breakthrough had enriched your body and mind, but the energy that erupted earlier had still affected your body. She paused and continued, so after you fell asleep, the overlord used some herbs to make incense to help you relieve the fatigue and replenish the energy in your body. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Wasn't he injured? No wonder, after she woke up. She felt that her body and mind were comfortable and light like a swallow. Initially she thought that this was the reaction after a night's rest after the breakthrough. She didn't expect. It was Xian He. Didn't he need to rest at all? The overlord knows his limits, even if it's for you, he won't tire himself out. Jun Qingwu comforted her. Then where did he go now? Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyes. That fool, silently waiting for her to fall asleep, for the sake of her body. But completely disregarding herself. He was injured and didn't even know how to rest properly. This man, when he started to pamper others, it made one's legs go soft. Kitty Lee snuggled into her arms and said, Overlord brother-in-law heard from Sister Zishi that there is a stock of medicinal herb that is especially helpful to you at the West Cliff Mountain, so I followed her to pick it. Yi Qing Luo's lips suddenly pursed tightly. Di Zun knows his limits. Don't worry. Jun Qingwu saw Yi Qing Luo's expression change and immediately held her arm, bringing her to the stone bench. I am angry. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were slightly sunken, so sunken that it turned black. He's worried about me, I'll also be worried about him, I'm still injured and still running around. She pursed her lips even tighter as she spoke. Then, he broke free from Jun Qingwu's grasp. No, I have to go to the Western Cliff Mountain to look for him. Di Zun has been gone for some time. Even if you go there now, you might not be able to find him. Jun Qingwu hurriedly hugged her. If you're angry, just wait for him to come back. Can't you just vent it on him? Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps. Jun Qingwu's words made sense. The West Cliff Mountain was huge. She went in search. Perhaps Dmo Xian was already on his way back. Yi Qing Luo dispelled the idea of going to West Cliff Mountain and recalled what Kitty Lee said earlier. Earlier you said. Zishi. Is she awake? In the spirit-devouring array, Gu Zishi was affected by the array and had fallen into a coma. Yi Qing Luo guessed that she would probably wake up soon. Later on, the auction event happened. Hearing the news that Gu Zishi had already woken up, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 38-44. Kitty Lee replied with an N and immediately pouted her lips as she mumbled, Sister has only been separated from Kitty for a month and already got to know so many friends. If Kitty Lee didn't find Sister in time, would Sister forget about Kitty Lee? The little girl's voice was filled with grievance. As though she was fighting for favor, her little head was raised up high to look at her. Yi Qing Luo rubbed Kitty Lee's furry little head as she laughed softly. I can forget anyone but Kitty Lee. My friends are Kitty Lee's friends. Kitty Lee's face finally revealed a smile after her fur was smoothed. She had just finished smoothing Kitty Lee's fur. Suddenly a little head came into her arms. In front of her was Mo Yuying's tender figure and that adorable Lolita's expressionless face. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Mo Yuying put her head under Yi Qing Luo's palm as she spat out a word stiffly, touch. Alright, this was a fight for favor. Looking at the two kids in front of her, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Then, he raised his hand and rubbed the heads of each of them. Mo Ying's stiff lips curled upwards. His smile was stiff and unnatural when compared to his expressionless face. Yiqing Luo pinched Mo Ying's face as her fingers landed on her raised lips. Shadow can smile more. Mo Ying tilted her head as her dense long eyelashes blinked and nodded, and just as she was saying that, Yiqing Luo acutely felt a scorching gaze falling on her. She immediately looked over. She saw a slender figure standing at the entrance of the courtyard. Silver hair and black robe. The gentle breeze made the desolation on the man's body even more obvious. It was Qiao Yinyan. He was looking at her without blinking. No. More accurately, his attention was still on Mo Ying. Only occasionally, a glance, which made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to it. When she looked over, Qiao Yinyan also raised his eyes and met her gaze. Yiqing Luo understood. She whispered something to Mo Ying and Kitty Li. Then she walked towards Qiao Yinyan. Do you have time? I want to talk to you. Qiao Yinyan looked at her, his eyes dark and heavy. Yiqing Luo understood his meaning as she nodded her head. Following closely behind him, the two of them walked out of the courtyard. Qiao Yinyan walked in front. His slender figure looked extremely lonely from the back. It was as if some darkness had covered his radiance. His entire person was very dispirited. Looking at his back view, Yiqing Luo sighed and took the initiative to open her mouth. You're looking for me, to ask about the matters regarding Shadow, right? Qiao Yinyan's footsteps suddenly halted. Yiqing Luo was very close. It could be seen that his body under the black robe had tensed up. As expected, it was because of Mo Ying. Mentioning Mo Ying, his reaction was huge. Mo Ying, was she really like this from the beginning? He didn't turn around, but from his voice, one could tell how confused and apprehensive he was. Yiqing Luo looked at his back view for a long time and didn't reply. Then she walked slowly to him, looked into his eyes and said word by word, whether it's true or not, from the moment you came to ask me, you already have the answer in your heart, isn't it? Qiao Yinyan's pupils contracted slightly. Chapter 38-45. Qiao Yinyan's eyes flashed past a gloomy glint. He clenched his fists as his expression turned cold. Looking at his expression, Yiqing Luo raised her brows slightly as she pursed her lips slightly, revealing a hint of coldness. You should be able to tell that Shadow's current condition is not that of a normal person. Indeed. From the first time she met Mo Ying, Yiqing Luo felt strange. But she heard from Long Yunjian and the rest that Mo Ying had always been like this. So she dispelled her intention to probe further. But now that she saw Qiao Yinyan, and thinking back to what Qiao Yinyan had said earlier, Qiao Yinyan felt that Mo Ying's current look was an act. Which meant, he had met Mo Ying, and it was the other side of Mo Ying. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids slightly. That girl who looked like a little Lolita had an expressionless face. Especially those big, round eyes. They were so beautiful, but they were empty and devoid of life. Every word and action, every action. They were like puppets that were being manipulated by strings. If it was the previous Mo Ying, she wasn't like this, which meant that there must be a reason why Mo Ying became like this. Qiao Yinyan's breathing became hurried. He raised his head abruptly as his eyes stared at Yiqing Luo. That gaze seemed to be urging her to continue speaking. Yiqing Luo was extremely curious about what had happened between Qiao Yinyan and Mo Ying. Moreover, she could tell Qiao Yinyan had deep feelings for Mo Ying. She was basically certain. The woman in Qiao Yinyan's heart that Gue Wu mentioned earlier was undoubtedly Mo Ying. Yiqing Luo thought about it and told Qiao Yinyan about the strange parts. During the world-destroying battle in the Nirvana realm, the secluded palace had targeted Mo Ying's soul. From the godless island, they had obtained a pitch-black dagger that targeted Mo Ying. After that, the period when Mo Ying was unconscious, her face and her eyes all had more of a human radiance. At that time, Mo Ying really looked like a normal person. But after that, she reverted back to that stiff puppet look. After Yiqing Luo finished speaking about these things, the more Qiao Yinyan listened, the deeper his frown became. In the end, his eyes were burning. Seeing Qiao Yinyan's expression, Yiqing Luo was almost certain. No matter what happened between Qiao Yinyan and Mo Ying in the past, it didn't matter how angry Qiao Yinyan was when he saw Mo Ying. In the end, he still had deep feelings for Mo Ying. No matter how Qiao Yinyan tried to refute it, it was the truth. Speaking of this, she was also very curious about something. Since you've always had Mo Ying in your heart, then why, when you first met me, your attitude towards me was so... Yiqing Luo deliberated over her words and finally used 2 words to describe it, so... ambiguous. It was indeed very ambiguous. Qiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. No matter who came to see it, they would all misunderstand, right? When she went to the Qiao mansion, Patriarch Qiao's eyes were shining as he looked at her. Clearly, she had misunderstood Qiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. Not to mention others. Even she had her doubts several times. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt that Qiao Yinyan's attention towards her didn't seem to be the kind of love between a man and a woman. She wanted to have an open and honest talk with Qiao Yinyan, while she was silently cursing in her heart. Chapter 38-46. Don't tell me. It's really because of what Guiwu said. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she clicked her tongue as her face was filled with a teasing smile. So the reason why you treated me so well right from the start was because Teacher Guiwu requested you to take care of me. Qiao Yinyan's expression froze. Not only his face, even the muscles on his body froze up. Following that, his flustered gaze evaded Yiqing Luo's line of sight as he lifted his leg and walked forward. That flustered look made him look like he had a guilty conscience. Yiqing Luo looked at his hurried back view as she couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seemed that her guess was not far from the truth. Qiao Yinyan took such good care of her. It was because of Guiwu's advance greeting. This also explained why Patriarch Qiao was so passionate when he saw her. It must be Guiwu, that old urchin, who intentionally said something to make Patriarch Qiao misunderstand, causing Patriarch Qiao to mistakenly think that she would become Qiao family's future daughter-in-law. Amen. Most importantly, Guiwu seemed to have used Mo Ying's name to greet Qiao Yinyan. That meant to say, Qiao Yinyan had always known that Mo Ying was in Nirvana realm. He had been secretly paying attention to Mo Ying. Then why? How could he not know about the changes in Mo Ying? What had happened to Mo Ying, which caused her to become like this? These questions looked like she could only ask Teacher Guiwu after they met before she could find out. After Qiao Yinyan left, Yiqing Luo returned to the courtyard. Zhou Mo's brows rose as he asked smilingly, "That lad looked for you, is it to ask about Shadow?" Yiqing Luo nodded as her gaze fell onto Shadow. Mo Ying tilted her head as she blinked. "Me?" Yiqing Luo waved at her. Mo Ying immediately ran into Yiqing Luo's arms as she raised her exquisite and adorable face as she looked at her. Yiqing Luo touched her head. "Shadow doesn't remember that man at all." Qiao Yinyan. Mo Ying mumbled this name, "Why should I remember him?" Yiqing Luo saw that she had even remembered Qiao Yinyan's name and raised her slender brows as she asked with a smile, "Looks like Shadow's impression of Yinyan is rather deep. Because he always stares at me with a very annoying gaze." Mo Ying's answer was very straightforward. Looking at Mo Ying's expressionless face, Yiqing Luo rejoiced that she had scared Xiao Yinyan away earlier. Otherwise, how painful would it be for him to hear this sentence? Shadow, let me ask you a question. Yiqing Luo placed both her hands on Mo Ying's shoulders and slightly bent down to meet her gaze. Mo Ying blinked her eyes. Her empty and lifeless eyes were extremely black. In your memory, have you lost a certain period of memory? Yiqing Luo asked seriously. Mo Ying blinked her empty eyes again. Do you think that I have forgotten about Xiao Yinyan? Yiqing Luo nodded calmly. Yes, so, you really don't remember him, right? I don't have his memory. Mo Ying shook her head stiffly. As for whether or not I lost my memory, I don't know. You don't know. This sentence made Yiqing Luo extremely surprised. Mo Ying replied, my memory is very chaotic and I can't remember if I have lost any memory. But I really don't know Xiao Yinyan. How could a normal person's memory be chaotic? Chapter 38-47. Looks like Mo Ying would become a puppet without a soul. There had to be a reason. Moreover, this reason might be related to Mo Ying's chaotic memories. If you want to clarify your relationship with Yin Yan, after you return to Nirvana Realm, you can look for Teacher Gue Yu and ask him, he should know something. Yiqing Luo left the choice to herself. Mo Ying didn't reply and just stared at him with her lifeless eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Qiao family's housekeeper came over to invite Yiqing Luo and the rest to head to the main hall for their meal. This was the Qiao family's territory. The news of her waking up and Xiao Yinyan walking out of the courtyard would definitely reach Patriarch Qiao's ears very quickly. Family head Qiao's actions were quite fast. Yiqing Luo thought about it and accepted the invitation. If she were to wait for Dmo Xian to return, her imagination would run wild and she would be restless. Go to the main hall. It's more lively there, and it can also divert some attention. Anyway, when Dmo Xian returned, they could just grab anyone to ask and they would know where he was. The group followed the butler to the main hall of the Qiao family. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected, a small banquet was set up in the main hall of the Qiao family. The long tables on both sides were filled with guests. Yiqing Luo gauged with her eyes. There were about 40 of them. When he saw Yiqing Luo and her entourage walking over, those people immediately stood up and respectfully cupped their hands towards them with smiles on their faces. Madam D. Madam D. Madam D. Various voices affectionately called out to Yiqing Luo. The smile on his face, the respect in his tone. There was a hint of flattery that was hard to detect. Patriarch Qiao immediately went forward to welcome them. Lady Yi, Lady D, come, this way please, this way please. Yiqing Luo looked around. In the main seat of the main hall was a rectangular table. He counted the seats. It just so happened to be their position. Yiqing Luo didn't stand on ceremony with them as she walked directly to the main seat and sat down. TSK. What kind of formation is this? Zhou Mo muttered softly. Yiqing Luo shot a glance at Zhou Mo as her lips curled into a faint smile. These people are from various large powerhouses in the Earth domain. He had just looked around. There were many familiar faces present. They were all profound practitioners who had survived the auction. Ever since Patriarch Qiao sent the butler to invite them. Yiqing Luo could roughly guess that the purpose of the invitation was probably to discuss about the auction. However, inviting so many people was beyond her expectations. Imperial Madam, please forgive me for taking the liberty to let these friends in. Qiao family head's temper had changed, and he seemed to be very calm. But the expression he shot towards Yiqing Luo had betrayed his inner thoughts. Patriarch Qiao stared at her with a fiery gaze. From time to time, he would glance at his son, who was sitting quietly beside him. Clearly, he had not given up on the idea of pairing her up with Qiao Yinyan. Yiqing Luo glanced at Immerse from the corner of her eyes and then smiled as she shook her head. This is the Qiao residence. Whoever the Qiao family wants to receive is the Qiao family's right. Patriarch Qiao's smile froze. The smiles on the faces of the profound practitioners from the various great forces also froze. Since they came to the Qiao residence, their intentions were already very clear. Was Yiqing Luo pretending not to understand, or did she really not understand? The atmosphere in the main hall was tense. Chapter 38-48. Qiao family's patriarch broke the deadlock. Various powerhouses cultivators naturally wouldn't continue to put on a stiff expression and make the atmosphere so stiff. One by one, they raised their wine cups and respectfully toasted towards Yiqing Luo's direction as they expressed their gratitude. To these cultivators, Yiqing Luo wasn't disgusted, but they were definitely not the same kind of people. But as the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. These powerful cultivators from various powerhouses who were usually high up on the top were now putting on a smiling face to a junior like her. Yiqing Luo wouldn't really rub her nose in front of them as her performance was too cold. To tell the truth, Yiqing Luo herself was very clear. The main reason why these people were so polite to her was not because she had broken the auction's array, allowing everyone to survive, but because of Dmo Xian. She clearly saw that when she and the group of people entered the main hall, quite a number of gazes were wandering around her, searching for him. Yiqing Luo understood everyone's thoughts. After all, the strong were revered. Everyone respected Dmo Xian and she was rather proud. Her lips curled slightly, her smile was distant, not easy to get close to, but she wasn't rude. There's no need to thank me. The reason why I worked so hard is not just because of you. She stood up and downed the wine in her cup in one gulp as she continued, if the array is not broken, all of us will die in the array, so I'm doing it for myself. Although that's the case, but Imperial Madam fought with the Palace of Darkness and almost lost her life. She even used her own blood to test the array and broke the array. These are all indisputable facts. One of the powerhouses who was seated in front cupped his fists and said, "Everything that Imperial Madam has done to break the array, we will remember it in our hearts and express our deep gratitude." Another cultivator continued. Immediately, there were other cultivators who started to praise her. The main hall instantly became noisy. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her hand to stop everyone's bootlicking. Her smile remained unchanged and the expression on her face didn't change at all. "Thank you for your kindness. During the auction, I actually made it very clear that the reason why I risked my life was because I didn't want Palace of Darkness's evil plan to succeed. If you really want to thank me, then use your power to find the hidden forces of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Start this war with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness and win. That's enough." Yiqing Luo's words made everyone's voices of thanks to stop abruptly. They all looked at each other. Regarding what the Abyss Palace had done, many forces had already put the Abyss Palace on their blacklist. After all, the other party was bullying him. If they didn't take some action, they would definitely be killed. Wouldn't the other party think that they were easy to bully? This point, even if Yiqing Luo didn't mention it, they would also investigate the power of the Palace of Darkness. Their losses this time could be said to be half of the wings of the entire land. How could they let go of the Netherworld Palace? From the burning rage in everyone's eyes, Yiqing Luo could tell what they were thinking. If the people of the land domain were willing to investigate the Palace of Darkness, no matter how deep the Palace of Gloomy Darkness hid, he would eventually reveal his foxtail. Currently, Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that the secluded Darkness Palace would take advantage of the fact that the Earth Realm's vitality was severely damaged to swallow the Earth Realm. The commotion caused by the auction was too big. This had already attracted the attention of the historian of balance. Chapter 3849. If Secluded Palace were to take action now, it would definitely attract the attention of the higher realms people. By then, whatever plan Secluded Palace wanted to carry out would definitely be difficult. What Imperial Madam said is right. Our three cities' common enemy is Secluded Palace. Our forces have suffered heavy losses because of Secluded Palace, so we must take revenge for this. Imperial Madam, don't worry. Even if you don't mention it, we will not let Secluded Palace off. That's right. I am absolutely irreconcilable with Secluded Palace. Everyone clenched their fists, venting their anger and hatred towards Secluded Palace. Yiqing Luo didn't continue exchanging pleasantries with them and inciting them. Secluded Palace's method in the auction. They had completely lost the hearts of the people in the Earth domain. Even now, when Secluded Palace wanted to recruit people in the Earth domain, no one would go over. Those who joined Secluded Palace in the auction, each and every one of them, died much worse than the others. Those who joined, those who wanted to betray, turned into blood mist and had their souls scattered. Those who didn't want to betray, were directly killed by those monsters in Secluded Palace who couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. It was simply insane to the extreme. Whoever wanted to join Secluded Palace was simply looking for death. Yiqing Luo looked at everyone's infuriated looks as she slowly sat down. Her expression was still somewhat solemn. Suddenly, a fair and slender hand stretched out in front of her. Her jade-white fingers held a wine cup. The wine was swaying in the cup. Junqing's cold voice was heard by her ear, "Have a drink." Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and met Junqing's cold expression. She smiled as she poured herself a full cup of wine, raised the wine cup and clinked it with hers. The two of them didn't say anything as they raised their heads at the same time and downed the wine in one gulp. When they put down the wine cup, Junqing propped her chin as her brows rose slightly as she looked at her indifferently. Why? Still thinking about Secluded Palace. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. I don't understand, why did Secluded Palace take such a huge risk to take action during the auction? She paused slightly and suddenly thought of something as she turned her body sideways to look at Junqing. During this period of time, have you found out any news about the mastermind of Secluded Palace? Junqing's expression darkened when she mentioned this point. She shook her head. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is very cunning. The real mastermind is hidden too well. Currently, the only information we know is that person is definitely someone with a high position in the Heaven Realm. Or, it might be related to the God Realm. Divine Realm. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips slightly. In the Upper Realm. Is there really a God Realm? Although the three realms of the Heaven-Earth God Realm were collectively known as the Upper Three Realms. But what Yiqing Luo heard were mostly from the Earth Realm and Heaven Realm. There were very, very few rumors about the God Realm. It was said that after the Divine Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago, the Divine World gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Now, although there were still many legends in the Divine World, there were also people who said that Dmo Xian came from the Divine Realm. However, it was impossible to ascertain whether the God Realm still had true godlike existences. Chapter 3850. The Palace Lord of the Nether Palace on the surface. In Yiqing Luo's mind, an image of a black-robed figure with a black cloak covering his entire face appeared. Towards that Palace Lord of the Nether Palace. Yiqing Luo's memory was still very deep. What made her most unforgettable was that Palace Lord's gaze towards her. Very strange. Very familiar. However, she was unable to recall where that sense of familiarity came from. Furthermore, that palace lord's actions made her puzzled and puzzled. Most importantly, she was sealed in the palace which was filled with evil chi by the real mastermind. It was also that palace lord who told Dmo Xian the correct location of the palace, which allowed Dmo Xian to find her in time. Who was the palace lord of the Nether Palace on the surface? Have you thought of any clues? Jun Qingwu saw Yi Qing Luo's grave expression and that half-squinted eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold ray. Yi Qing Luo regained her senses and met with Jun Qingwu's gaze, which seemed to know everything. She was slightly stunned as she shook her head. Nothing. Jun Qingwu only took a deep look at her and didn't continue to ask. Yi Qing Luo's eyelids drooped as her eyes turned deep and her slightly cold voice was piercingly cold. Nether Palace. Sooner or later I will personally destroy it. The two of them were discussing in a low voice. Various powerhouses cultivators had already expressed their attitude. They had set a common goal: to deal with the Nether Palace. After that, under Patriarch Qiao's instructions, they started to eat and drink. Many powerhouses cultivators tried to find all sorts of topics to talk to Yi Qing Luo. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude was very calm. Alienated, but there was nothing wrong with it. She said that she was high and mighty, totally looking down on them. But Yi Qing Luo's tone and attitude towards them was still considered polite. She said that she wanted to get to know them, to have more friends and more paths. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude was extremely alienated, with no intention to continue to develop a future with them. This made everyone feel strange and at the same time unable to get on her good side. They were stuck here, neither up nor down, which was indeed uncomfortable. Just like this, it continued for about 2 incense sticks worth of time. Suddenly, a howl was heard from outside the main hall. Hey hey hey. Why are you dragging me? Who are you? What do you want? That howl was quite tragic. Then, the orderly voices of the Qiao family's guards could be heard. But it couldn't stop the howl from getting closer. Everyone in the main hall heard this voice. Patriarch Qiao stood up first and was about to rush out. Soon after, a black shadow was thrown into the main hall. Patriarch Qiao subconsciously raised his hand and slashed over. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were sharp, and when she saw that black shadow being thrown over, her eyes changed. The glower flame fan in her hands moved and a hurricane was formed, sweeping the black shadow towards her. Qiao family's head slashed the air and saw the direction where the black shadow turned. Just as he was about to ask Yi Qing Luo, the black figure that was thrown and rolled on the ground a few times. Then, holding on to his waist, he climbed up while shouting, "Ouch!" He wore a green robe, and his hair was a little messy due to the torment. He raised his hand and rubbed his face that was hurt from the fall. His handsome face was very upright. The most eye-catching thing was that pair of dark golden eyes, sparkling with a brilliant luster which made one unable to shift their gaze away. Pei, boss Pei. After seeing that black shadow's face clearly, Patriarch Qiao was stunned. Chapter 38:51. What on earth was going on? Pei Xing rubbed his own face and was still drawing in cold air from the pain. As he touched his ears, he stood up and cried out to Yi Qing Luo, "Ah Luo, save me. There's a crazy old man who kept dragging me to look for you, it hurts so much." Yi Qing Luo noticed that his face and ears had turned red from the pinching. Before she could say a word. Immediately following that, a gush of horrifying aura gushed into the main hall's main door. The surrounding pressure instantly dropped to the lowest point. Many cultivators' expressions turned gloomy as they held on to their weapons alertly as their sharp eyes stared sharply at the main hall's main door. Could it be that the secluded palace had made a comeback? Thinking of this, everyone became even more alert. Even the aura on his body had become much more powerful. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she immediately stood up and crossed the long table, pulling Pei Xing behind her as she straightened her back and looked towards the main door. Pei Xing said. There was an old man looking for her. He specifically mentioned her name to look for her. Who could it be? The aura in the main hall surged even more ferociously. Wave after wave of airwaves. Yiqing Luo felt that the surrounding air seemed to have congealed. Just at this moment, a figure hurried over from the door and entered. Just in a blink of an eye, that figure had already appeared in the middle of the main hall. He stood face to face with Yiqing Luo. The distance between the two of them was not more than 10 steps. That was a white-haired old man dressed in brocade robes, but he had a dignified demeanor. His entire body was in flames. The minute he appeared, he gave everyone a huge sense of oppression. The profound practitioners of the various major forces immediately felt a great pressure bearing down on them. It was as if their bodies were being pressed to the ground by an invisible force. This kind of feeling. Yiqing Luo was also affected. Her slender brows creased as she met the old man's sharp and imposing eyes. Who are you? She opened her mouth and asked coldly. The old man's gaze was fixed on Yiqing Luo, as though he was inspecting some goods as he sized Yiqing Luo up. Following that, his brows creased tightly, as though he was despising her. Yiqing Luo. 1. Face. Stunned. Force. Who on earth was this old man? What was with that look of disdain? You are Yiqing Luo? The old man asked calmly. Yiqing Luo realized that this old man might not be from the Earth domain. She didn't answer and just looked at him warily. The old man saw that Yiqing Luo was ignoring him. He stared fiercely at Pei Xing as he shouted sternly, "The Yiqing Luo you mentioned, is it this woman?" Pei Xing was hollered at and his entire body shrank behind Yiqing Luo. At the same time, he touched his ears. How can a man like you hide behind a woman's back? Our Huangfu clan doesn't have a man like you. When the old man saw Pei Xing's actions, he couldn't help but frown and shout at him sternly. Yiqing Luo caught onto a crucial point. Huangfu clan. This old man, someone from the Huangfu clan. In other words, people from the Heaven Realm. This Huangfu family, wasn't it one of the Heaven Realm's 4 great families, Qiao Jin's family? Why would he come to the land? It seemed like the target was still looking for her. Yiqing Luo expressed that she was in a daze. You are from the Huangfu family. The old man glanced coldly at Yiqing Luo and shifted his gaze onto Pei Xing, who was behind her. Stand upright and upright. Pei Xing was so scared that he quivered. He immediately stood out from behind Yiqing Luo. And he even stood up straight. After he stood up, he then realized what he had done. Chapter 38-52. This old man. What did he mean by that? Not only Yiqing Luo was stunned. The surrounding cultivators from various powerhouses were all stunned as well. All of them stared at the old man in unison, guessing his intention for coming. In the old man's eyes, it seemed as though he couldn't see anyone else. After seeing Pei Xing stand up straight, that solemn and heavy expression on his face eased up a little. But the gaze which he shot towards Pei Xing was still that little bit of disdain and displeasure. But this disdain, as compared to the disdain which Yiqing Luo saw in the old man's eyes, was absolutely not the same kind of emotion. So, how much did this old man despise her? Just as she was thinking, that old man's vision shifted onto Yiqing Luo. Following that, his white brows creased as he raised his chin and opened his mouth. Yiqing Luo, I heard that. You're the one who saved this lad, and even activated this lad's concealed Huangfu bloodline. Yiqing Luo controlled herself, ignoring the old man's arrogant tone. From the old man's aura. If they were to fight, she might be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, what did that old man say earlier? Activated. Huangfu bloodline. Huangfu. Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled Xiao Jin's pair of golden eyes. Wait a minute. She recalled it. Huangfu family. Their unique point was Huangfu family's people's eyes were all golden. Right. Golden. She finally recalled, when she saw Pei Xing's outburst, his eyes flashed a dark golden glow, and where did that familiar feeling come from? Because previously, Xiao Jin's eyes had also turned golden. But the color of Pei Xing's eyes was very different from Xiao Jin's golden color. It was also different from the usual color of Huangfu family's eyes. If she didn't remember wrongly, those Huangfu family's people, other than Xiao Jin who the Huangfu family had recognized as the successor, all the younger generation only had one golden eye. One gold, one ink. But Pei Xing's eye color. Not only was it that kind of dark golden color, but both eyes revealed a dark golden glow. But this old man in front of her said Pei Xing's Huangfu bloodline had been activated? What was going on? Looking at Yiqing Luo's puzzled expression, the displeasure and disdain on the old man's face became even more obvious. He walked towards Yiqing Luo in big strides, his footsteps were steady and his footsteps brought along the wind, his imposing manner was overbearing. As he approached, Yiqing Luo didn't evade. Instead, he frowned and met the old man's gaze. Then, he stared into the old man's eyes, searching for traces of gold. Facing Yiqing Luo's piercing gaze, the old man's brows furrowed even tighter, and he shouted sternly, "Little girl, I'm asking you a question." This voice was mixed with Xian energy. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but dig her buzzing ears. "I don't even know who you are, why should I answer a stranger's question?" The old man's face darkened. Apparently he had never met someone like Yiqing Luo who wasn't afraid of his prestige and was so rude to him. His eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo. His sharp eyes occasionally flashed with a golden luster. Yiqing Luo caught it. Indeed, someone from the Huangfu family. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she shot a glance at Pei Xing's direction, and continued to speak. "You specially came over from Heaven Realm, because you sense Pei Xing's Huangfu bloodline, and wanted to bring him back." Chapter 38-53. As he spoke, he looked at the old man again, and, "Who on earth are you? The minute you saw me, you dragged me here and clamored to look for Ah Luo, what's going on?" Hearing Pei Xing's words, the old man frowned. "You don't even know your own identity." "Me?" Pei Xing was even more confused. "What identity? What are you guys talking about?" The old man's face turned even darker. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped Pei Xing from asking any further questions as she directly opened her mouth. Ah Xing had grown up in the Earth Realm since young and his parents are from the Earth Realm. If he's really from the Huangfu family, then you shouldn't be asking him but your Huangfu family yourself. Why on earth did you allow Ah Xing to wander around in the Earth Realm? Being criticized by a junior, the old man couldn't keep his face. His face sunk as he shouted angrily, "I will investigate this matter clearly. I don't need you to point fingers." "So, you want to bring Ah Xing to the Heaven Realm?" Yiqing Luo asked. Yiqing Luo and the old man's exchange. His words entered the ears of all the profound practitioners of the major forces. That was to set off a huge wave. Heaven Realm. This master, is he from the Heaven Realm? Didn't you hear, the Imperial Madam said. Huangfu family. Huangfu family. One of the 4 heavenly families in the Heaven Realm. Other than the Huangfu family, which is one of the 4 heavenly families, is there a second Huangfu family? Why would the Huangfu family from the heaven realm come to the earth realm? And those cultivators in Without Embroiling City heard that Yiqing Luo wanted to ask about the Huangfu family and bring Pei Xing to the heaven realm. They were even more shocked. What was the relationship between Pei Xing and the Huangfu family? Why did it sound like Pei Xing was from the Huangfu family? This piece of heavy news, one after another, made everyone dumbfounded. The surrounding people's discussion made Pei Xing nervous. His eyeballs rolled, looking at the old man and Yiqing Luo from time to time. He had a stomach full of questions to ask. But looking at the atmosphere between the old man and Yiqing Luo, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Young lady, in that case, this young lad is indeed you, and you've stimulated his Huangfu blood meridians. Old man imitated Yiqing Luo's tone, as he countered with a question. Yiqing Luo was just about to reply. Then, he threw another sentence that almost made her explode. Since you've activated this kid's Huangfu bloodline, I'll make the decision. From now on, you'll be this kid's wife. When you return to the Huangfu clan, the two of you will get married. These words shocked the profound practitioners of the various great powers so much that they almost jumped up. Grandpa, do you know what you are saying? Do you know who the girl opposite you is? If Lord Dizun were to hear this, not to mention the Huangfu clan, even the entire heaven realm would be turned upside down by Dizun. However, the old man didn't have the ability to read minds, so he naturally didn't know what everyone was thinking. That's it. Now, the two of you will follow me to the celestial realm. The old man looked as if it was a matter of course. Yiqing Luo and Pei Xing looked at each other in dismay. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched a few times. Just as she was about to open her mouth to clarify things with the old man, she heard a few anxious voices coming from outside the main hall. Grandpa. Grandpa. Don't mess around. Immediately following that, she saw 3 figures, flying over. In a blink of an eye, they scurried to the old man's side. Chapter 38:54. The woman ran to the old man's side. Grandpa, this won't do, she can't, shut up. The old man's expression turned cold. He put his hands behind his back in a dignified and domineering manner. I've made up my mind. Their marriage has been decided just like that. The young lady's face was pale as she looked anxiously at Yiqing Luo's direction and stretched out her hand to pull the old man, wanting to say something. The old man impatiently shook off the woman. The other 2 men also followed up. Grandfather, Feng Yan doesn't mean that, you don't know, Yiqing Luo she is. I don't care what she is. Since she was the woman who had awakened that brat's bloodline, she was the one destined for that brat. I've already decided on this matter. All you need to do is to prepare for their return to the Huangfu clan. The 2 men's faces darkened even further. The woman opened her mouth a few times, but before she could say anything, the old man stopped her. It was Yiqing Luo who was slightly stunned when she saw the 3 of them appearing. Huangfu, Feng Yan, and the other 2 young masters of the Huangfu clan. Weren't these 3 the 3 from the Huangfu clan that he had met in the Nirvana realm? It was also the time before Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi confirmed their relationship. They actually came. They seemed to be calling that old man Grandpa. Grandfather. In other words, this old man was Qiao Jin's grandfather. You know them. Hearing Yiqing Luo calling out his granddaughters and grandsons' names, the old man's brows creased as he looked suspiciously at Huangfu Fengyan and the rest. Huangfu Fengyan's beautiful face revealed a trace of panic. Grandfather. To be able to make eldest young master Huangfu, 3rd young master, and 4th young miss call you grandfather, I presume you're the Huangfu clan's patriarch, Huangfu Zhentian, right? After knowing the other party's identity, the sharpness in Yiqing Luo's eyes had already been restrained. Although he wasn't too sure what had happened between Qiao Jin and the Huangfu clan, he wasn't too sure. He wasn't too sure why Qiao Jin would leave the Huangfu clan. However, the other party was still Qiao Jin's grandfather. As Qiao Jin's brother, she naturally wouldn't be too overbearing. The old man, who was Huangfu Zhentian's white brows rose as the gaze he shot at Yiqing Luo was filled with a different kind of scrutiny. Looks like you're rather familiar with the people from the Huangfu family. In Huangfu Zhentian's eyes, Yiqing Luo was just a small cultivator from the Earth realm. Their Huangfu clan had always resided in the Heaven realm and rarely appeared in the lower realm. How did Yiqing Luo know Huangfu family's young master and young miss? Furthermore, he could tell. Those three people from Huangfu family also recognized Yiqing Luo. Huangfu Zhentian immediately waved his hand. Since we've known each other for a long time, then it's even easier to decide. Now, we will return to the Huangfu clan and arrange the marriage for you two. The three from the Huangfu clan were so shocked that their faces turned pale. Just as he was about to speak, Peixing finally reacted, and his eyes widened as he looked at Huangfu Zhentian with a dumbfounded expression. What? You want me to marry Ah Luo? Me? Ah Luo? He repeated in disbelief. Huangfu family's rules are as such, if it's a lady who stimulated your Huangfu bloodline, then, this lady will be your destined person. Huangfu Zhentian spoke in a matter-of-fact tone. Moreover, aren't you very reliant on that lady? I. Peixing's face flushed red from Huangfu Zhentian's words. Marry Ah Luo. Chapter 3855. If the Overlord heard it, his little life would be lost. Peixing's mental state was on the verge of collapse. How old are you? You're getting married and you're still shy. This matter has been decided. Do you have any objections? Huangfu Zhentian looked at Peixing with disdain and displeasure. As though there wasn't a single part of Peixing that caught his eye. Following that, he swept his gaze towards the three people who were surrounding him, who obviously had something to say. Being stared at by Huangfu Zhentian's domineering and dignified gaze. The three of them wanted to speak but didn't dare to. Just as the entire main hall had sunk into a strange atmosphere. A cold and dignified voice brought along an oppressive pressure as it poured over, towards old Master Huangfu's words. I have an objection. At the same time, there was a light panting but a loud and clear voice. I don't agree. Two voices were heard at the same time. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. Huangfu Zhentian felt that the dignified voice was very familiar. But momentarily, he couldn't recall when he had heard it before. On the contrary, it was the three people from the Huangfu family who were beside him who were so scared that they started trembling. Outside the main hall, a tall figure walked into it. The first thing that entered their eyes was that luxurious and pressing purple robe. Following that, it was that oppressive and sharp aura that was emitted from his entire body. When people looked at his absolutely magnificent face, they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They were forced by this invisible aura until they didn't dare to look straight at him. He walked over slowly. His brows were like swords, his dark eyes like a lake. As he got closer step by step, he was like an unsheathed sharp blade, emitting an incomparably cold frost. Cold and domineering to the extreme. Huangfu Zhentian's pupils suddenly constricted. His entire mood became stiff and solemn. Overlord. Huangfu Zhentian stared at the man who was walking over. I heard that there's news of Overlord in the Earth realm. I've not expected that Overlord is really here. He paused as his vision shot towards Yiqing Luo and Peixing, who were stunned on the spot as his voice deepened. I wonder if Overlord has any objection towards me. I have no objection towards you. Dmo Xian had already walked closer, and that domineering and imposing aura seemed as though it was going to destroy everything in the surroundings. As he approached, Huang Fuzhintian felt an enormous pressure pressing down on him. Ben Zun has a big objection to your decision. The man's deep and husky voice said word by word. Huang Fuzhintian was shocked by his sudden approach to the point of taking a step back. You. Huang Fuzhintian's brows creased tightly as he stared at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian took a direct stride, passing Huang Fuzhintian as he walked right in front of Yiqing Luo. You want to ask why, right? Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up frivolously as he suddenly stretched out his hand and wrapped it around Yiqing Luo's slender waist, pressing the young lady into his arms. Then, he glanced sideways. His eyes, which were as deep as a lake, were filled with a cold light. Why do you think so? Huang Fuzhintian was immediately stunned. He looked at Dmo Xian in shock, and looked at the hand which was wrapped around Yiqing Luo's waist. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Was he seeing things? Why was the overlord hugging Yiqing Luo? Dmo Xian's appearance made everyone break out in cold sweat for Huang Fuzhintian. Chapter 3856. Dmo Xian shot a chilly glance over. His thin lips curled up as he spoke with a smile which didn't look like a smile. If you had that kind of thinking, do you think you would be able to live till now? That gaze was so cold that Pei Xing couldn't help but shrink back as his face was filled with terror. Damn! He was so wrong that he wanted to cry outright. The person who insisted on matching him with Yiqing Luo was that old man. What did it have to do with him? He was also a person who got shot while lying down all right. Dmo Xian retracted his gaze, and when his gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo, the look in his eyes became gentle and affectionate. Yiqing Luo, who was brought into the man's arms, naturally wrapped her arms around the man's waist as she raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. Are you tired? Are you hurt? Not tired. Dmo Xian bent over and planted a kiss on her forehead as he spoke in a warm voice. Don't worry, there's nothing in this realm which can hurt me. Seeing that his expression wasn't unwell, Yiqing Luo then put on a straight face as her fingers hooked and pinched his waist fiercely. Who asked you to not rest properly, taking the opportunity when I'm asleep to do other things behind my back? Can't you just rest properly? He knew how to love her and take care of her body. Why didn't he know how to love her and take care of her? Hearing the young lady's worried words, Dmo Xian's brows flashed a trace of pampering smile. As he bent his head close to the young lady's face, that pair of black obsidian-like pupils were gradually tainted with a dark and deep luster. It seemed like there was some hidden emotion which needed to be harmonious. He leaned close to her ear as his voice was very hoarse, carrying an obvious meaning. You know how I can rest well. Yiqing Luo. Her face turned black. Damn it, she didn't know. Didn't want to know. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him as she raised her hand and pushed the man's broad and muscular body away. Scram. The interaction between the two. In everyone's eyes, it was so sweet that it made their teeth ache. Especially when they saw Yiqing Luo had no qualms as she directly pushed Dmo Xian away and arrogantly asked him to scram. They were all stunned. This was probably. You must be the first person who dares to tell Lord Dizun to get lost, right? But looking at Dizun's sweet smile and tenderness, Dizun could not help but laugh. Alright, the reason why the Imperial Madam could be so daring and fearless was because the Overlord doted on her. Once again, the profound practitioners of the various great powers felt it deeply. The love between Dizun and Di Furen. The profound practitioners were aware of this a long time ago. But, only now did Huang Fuzhintian seem to have understood something. He was completely dumbfounded. His eyes widened as he stared in shock at the two people hugging in front of him. Overlord, and Yiqing Luo, the two of them. Huang Fuzhintian couldn't believe his eyes. He immediately turned his head and glared at the three people behind him. The three from the Huangfu clan were pale, and their bodies were trembling slightly. When he met Huangfu Jintian's gaze, the three of them subconsciously averted their gazes. Huangfu Jintian immediately understood. The three of you already knew. Huangfu Fengyan bit her lower lip as she spoke softly. Grandfather, we wanted to tell you. But you didn't give us a chance to speak. Every time they opened their mouths, they were blocked by Huangfu Jintian. What could they do? They were in despair too. Chapter 38:57. Huangfu trio lowered their heads. They felt resentful from being scolded but didn't dare to voice it out. Huangfu Jintian looked at the surrounding gazes as he felt embarrassed. He cleared his throat and tried his best to maintain a serious expression. Following that, he pointed the spearhead towards Pei Xing. Stinky brat. Since it has nothing to do with Yi Qing. Miss Yi, why didn't you say so earlier? Pei Xing had a dazed look. After Huangfu Jintian scolded Pei Xing, he cupped his hands towards Dmo Xian. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Dmo Xian shot him a glance with a smile which didn't look like a smile as his thin lips curled into a frivolous smile, with a hint of coldness. Huangfu Jintian felt even more embarrassed. Yiqing Luo pushed Dmo Xian as she tidied up her collar and opened her mouth to break the deadlock. Huangfu family's old master. Why did he come all the way to the Earth realm? She paused slightly as she pointed at Pei Xing. According to Ah Xing's memory, he has a father and mother and he grew up in the Earth realm since young. Old master's trip here is to grab hold of Ah Xing, talking about this and that, deciding on Ah Xing's marriage. Have you ever thought about Ah Xing's thoughts? Huangfu Jintian's open mouth slowly closed. The expression on his face slowly turned solemn and grave. Yiqing Luo didn't wait for him to continue speaking. His gaze fell on the slender figure outside the main hall's door. Also, the old master made a mess of matchmaking without saying a word. Not only does my Ah Xian have objections, but I'm afraid that, and Ah Xing also have objections. Following Yiqing Luo's words, everyone looked towards the main door. They saw a delicate lady standing at the door. The ice blue long dress made the lady look lively and lovely. When Pei Xing saw that person, his dark golden eyes flashed as he suddenly stood up from the ground and looked over in a daze. Little sister. Brother Xing. The lady pursed her lips as she called out. Following that, she lifted her leg and walked into the main hall. Wasn't this Lady Gu Zixi? Pei Xing immediately went up and grabbed Gu Zixi wrist. Why are you here? Gu Zixi raised her head as her beautiful eyes looked at Pei Xing's face without blinking. She took a deep breath as her pearly white teeth bit her lower lip. I came here with the Overlord. Pei Xing wanted to say something. Huangfu Jintian suddenly pushed Pei Xing away and sized Gu Zixi up from head to toe. The more he looked, the deeper his frown became. After that, he took a few glances at Yiqing Luo's direction. You're the lady who followed the Overlord and shouted that she had objections. Huangfu Jintian naturally heard the lady's voice that rang out together with Dmo Xian earlier. It was only because he saw Dizun. He didn't care about the objection that the woman shouted. But now, he saw this woman. Then, he saw the atmosphere between the woman and Pei Xing. Huangfu Jintian furrowed his brows. Lord Dizun has an objection because of Miss Yi. Little miss, what about you? Gu Zixi's eyes flashed when she was called out. Under the pressure of Huangfu Jintian's aura, even her delicate body was slightly trembling. However, when she glanced at Pei Xing, she felt a chill run down her spine. However, she stubbornly raised her head and her beautiful eyes met Huangfu Jintian's. It's because of Brother Sheng. Her crisp voice paused after every word, without the slightest hesitation. Her voice was like thunder as it landed heavily on Pei Xing's heart. It was like a huge hammer, smashing down heavily. In his heart, he roughly guessed something. His entire person instantly became nervous. His heartbeats suddenly sped up. Just at this moment. Chapter 38:58. Pei Xing's heart skipped a beat. Little sister, Gu Zixi used her gaze to stop him from saying what he wanted to say. I don't want to wait anymore. Gu Zixi looked at Pei Xing and said softly, Pei Xing, I really don't want to call you Brother Xing anymore, and I don't want to hear you call me little sister. Pei Xing's throat tightened. Looking at Gu Zixi's determined eyes, he wanted to escape for a moment. However, his hands were tightly wrapped by Gu Zixi's hands. The woman's unique softness made it impossible for him to escape. Gu Zixi's eyes were firm, and she looked at him without blinking. Pei Xing, I said. I don't want to escape anymore. Her slender fingers gently held his hand and placed it on her heart. The woman's soft touch made Pei Xing so shocked that he wanted to withdraw his hand. However, Gu Zixi held him firmly. His face turned red instantly. Gu Zixi smiled slightly, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tenderness. Do you feel it? My heart is beating faster because of you. This sentence was almost no different from the words, I like you. It was completely clear that she expressed her feelings to Pei Xing. Pei Xing's pupils kept enlarging. After Gu Zixi's words struck him in the heart, his face flushed red, as though it was about to burst into flames. His lips trembled, and he stammered, little sister, you. He was nervous and excited. It made him feel as if there were colorful fireworks blooming in his mind. It made him unable to think about anything else. However, Gu Zixi grabbed his collar with her hand. She suddenly pulled him with both hands. Pei Xing leaned forward. The distance between him and her was shortened. Pei Xing, last time in the soul-devouring formation, I made it very clear that I don't want to be your little sister. The distance between him and her was very close. When Gu Zixi spoke, Pei Xing could feel the woman's orchid fragrance. His face turned even redder. Even the muscles in his body were tense and excited. Especially his heart, which was beating wildly. He couldn't control it at all. Gu Zixi's voice was sonorous and firm as she continued, I only have one question for you. Are you willing to give the two of us a chance to be together? That voice was filled with determination and expectation. Pei Xing's heart thumped fiercely. He immediately looked at Gu Zixi. When he met Gu Zixi's beautiful eyes that were as bright as the stars and filled with determination, a certain place in his heart seemed to have been ruthlessly struck by something. Z11, his voice was hoarse as he subconsciously spat out these two words. There seemed to be something in his heart urging him to do something. Gu Zixi's beautiful eyes lit up. The corners of their mouths lifted into a smile. However, just as Pei Xing was about to speak, an angry voice broke the sweet confession scene. What are you doing? A young lady was courting in front of so many people. Don't you have any shame? Huangfu Jintian reached out, grabbed Pei Xing's collar, and pulled him to his side. Then he looked at Gu Zixi with even more disgust and displeasure. Little girl, don't you know how to be reserved at all? Let me tell you, I will never agree to the thing between you and this kid. Chapter 38:59. Whereas Gu Zixi was originally grabbing onto Pei Xing tightly and all her strength was pressing onto him. Pei Xing left. She instantly lost all her strength as her body suddenly fell forward. Zixi. Pei Xing anxiously wanted to rush over to support Gu Zixi, but his wrist was held tightly by Huangfu Jintian. Luckily Yiqing Luo moved swiftly in time as she shifted to Gu Zixi's side and caught her. Seeing Yiqing Luo supporting Gu Zixi in time, Pei Xing heaved a sigh of relief. He angrily shook off Huang Fuzhentian's hand which was holding on to him. Who are you to me? This is between me and Zishi, what has it got to do with you? You're my Huangfu family's member. Tell me, what has it got to do with me? Huang Fuzhentian held on to his hand tightly. Pei Xing's eyes turned red from anger. My surname is Pei, my father's surname is also Pei. I grew up in the Earth realm since young and can't get in touch with your Huangfu family. Huang Fuzhentian's large palm locked onto his shoulder as he forced him to look at him in the eye. After that, he said word by word, but, your mother's surname is Huangfu. The anger in Pei Xing's eyes suddenly froze. His struggling movements also stopped. His mother, Huangfu. Pei Xing's brows creased tightly as he was unable to digest Huang Fuzhentian's words. Huang Fuzhentian looked at him. This pair of eyes of yours is the best proof. Although it's not pure golden eyes, but it's still my Huangfu family's bloodline. Pei Xing shook his head as he struggled free from Huang Fuzhentian's hand in disbelief. Even if my mother's surname is Huangfu, that doesn't mean that I'm related to your Huangfu family. For so many years, even when my mother passed away, she didn't appear. On what basis do you make me believe you? Your mother. Huang Fuzhentian's expression sunk slightly as an undetectable sorrow flashed past his eyes, but very quickly, it dissipated in the imposing manner. No matter what, the fact that your Huangfu family's bloodline cannot be erased. Since you've already stimulated the Huangfu bloodline, then you must follow me back to Huangfu family. As for these messy relationships in the Earth realm, break it off. He shot a meaningful glance towards Gu Zixi's direction. Pei Xing was so shocked by this series of words that his head was about to explode. A moment ago. Furthermore, he had lived with her for so many years. Even though they were brother and sister, he had fallen in love with her, and their hearts were interlinked. He was excited and excited. The next moment. It was like throwing down a heavy bomb. His heart felt heavy, and he found it hard to breathe. He was unable to believe what Huang Fuzhentian said. But his rationality told him otherwise. To be able to make the dignified Huangfu family patriarch personally come from the heaven realm. They had definitely confirmed his identity. It couldn't be faked. However, he did not want to admit it. He didn't want to have anything to do with the Huangfu family. After so many years of cynicism and mockery, he had no choice but to accept it. All he wanted to do was protect his father's treasure assembly exchange hall, and live a good life with the people he cared about. Tisk! Suddenly, a mocking sneer rang out clearly in the main hall. Following that, he saw Yiqing Luo holding on to Gu Zixi as she walked towards Pei Xing. Her steps were light and her back was straight. Between her long and narrow eyes, there was a cold light that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. The way he looked at Huang Fuzhentian seemed to be mocking something. Very provocative. Huang Fuzhentian's face immediately turned black. Chapter 3860. Yiqing Luo's tone was obviously heavy. Huang Fuzhentian naturally understood the meaning in her words. His expression sunk slightly as he took a look at Yiqing Luo. This question wasn't easy to answer. Yiqing Luo's attitude was obviously to stand up for Gu Zixi. If he really said that he didn't fancy Gu Zixi, that would be indirectly expressing that he didn't fancy the person whom the Overlord's wife had taken a fancy to. That meant he didn't fancy the Overlord's wife. But if he really agreed, he had taken a fancy to Gu Zixi. Could it be that he really let this stinky brat and Gu Zixi be together? Huang Fuzhentian was in a difficult position. Behind him, Huangfu Fengyan looked at Huang Fuzhentian's expression as her eyes flickered slightly. Following that, she walked over to Huang Fuzhentian's side as she looked at Yiqing Luo and explained in a warm and polite voice, "Miss Yi, grandfather doesn't mean that. But according to our Huangfu family's rules, like this, cousin brother, as a branch descendant of Huangfu family, Because of a woman, if his Huangfu bloodline is stimulated, then this woman will be the destined person of this branch descendant. There was such a saying. That Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi didn't seem to have any problems with Huangfu bloodline or the destined person. As though he saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Huangfu family's eldest young master Huangfu Dongyu also explained, because in cousin Pei Xing's body, there is half an ordinary person's blood. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline. Huangfu family's third young master Huangfu Qi Fei naturally didn't want to fall behind and let the both of them snatch the limelight in front of his grandfather, as he immediately continued, for cousin Pei Xing's innate talent and bloodline, it's possible that he will never be able to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline in his entire life. And to be able to stimulate this potential, it's because he has an extremely strong will, wanting to protect someone's will. The three siblings looked at each other. Then Huangfu Fengyan continued, so Huangfu family would set such a rule since ancient times. There were three people's explanations, which helped Huangfu Jintian out of the predicament. Huangfu Jintian's grave expression had just eased up. Soon after, a cold and indifferent voice rang out, so, you still have your eyes on this lord's woman? This voice was heard. The entire main hall fell into a deathly silence. The faces of the three Huangfu siblings turned deathly pale. Of course not. Huangfu Fengyan resisted the pressure and said, Miss Yi and Dizun's relationship is as deep as the ocean. We just that you can't accept my Zishi. Yiqing Luo's cold voice interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words. She arched a disdainful smile and raised her eyes. Who told you that I was the one who awakened Pei Xing's bloodline? This is cousin Pei Xing himself. Huangfu Fengyan was pressured by this imposing aura to the point that she found it hard to breathe. A trace of jealousy flashed in the depths of her eyes. How long had it been since they last met? Why, Yiqing Luo's ability and her imposing manner had become even more threatening. I didn't. Pei Xing's eyes immediately widened as he shook his head fiercely towards Dmo Xian's direction. I don't know them. How could I tell them this? It's you. Huangfu Fengyan's face was pale as she carefully looked at Huangfu Jintian. She anxiously pushed the blame onto Pei Xing. Looking at Huangfu Fengyan's expression. How would Huangfu Jintian still not understand? Chapter 3861. That kid's Huangfu blood meridian is not important. Huangfu Jintian interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words as he spoke in a deep voice. My motive is to bring the Huangfu family's bloodline back to Huangfu family. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing when she heard that. She squinted her eyes as she shot a glance at Pei Xing's direction. Pei Xing's expression was extremely ugly as his eyes sunk and he clenched his fists tightly as his muscles tensed up. Apparently, he was extremely angry. And his heart was surging with raging waves. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her gaze shifted towards Huangfu Jintian calmly. Her pink lips curled upwards with some traces of ridicule. As though she was provoking him. Huangfu Jintian's white brows creased into a bundle. But when he saw that tall and slender figure behind Yiqing Luo, he forcefully suppressed the whirlpool in his eyes. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms as she gave a smile which was indeed asking for a beating. Old Master Huangfu's words are wrong. According to the rules passed down by your Huangfu family's ancestors, I feel that the matter of who stimulated Pei Xing's potential is extremely important. When she said that, it instantly caused the various powerhouses cultivators to draw in a cold breath. All of them were guessing. What was Yiqing Luo's intention? Could it be that she really had some thoughts about Pei Xing? Did she really want to become Pei Xing's destined person? Had she neglected? The overlord was still by the side. Not only the surrounding cultivators were shocked. Even Huang Fujiantian frowned slightly because of Yi Qing Luo's words. Of course, he didn't feel that Yi Qing Luo wanted to become Pei Xing's destined person, which was why she didn't let this matter go. Could it be that she wanted to? Huang Fujiantian's astute eyes flickered as he glanced at Gu Zixi direction. As expected, the next moment, he heard the young lady's chilly voice, because the person who stimulated Pei Xing's potential isn't me, but my Zixi. Huang Fujiantian's eyes flashed past a sliver of understanding. He gave a cold snort in disdain. It was very soft, but Yi Qing Luo, who was standing nearby, could clearly hear Huang Fujiantian's cold snort. She could also clearly see the disdain in his eyes. It was just a glance. Yi Qing Luo could tell what he was thinking. The corners of Zhang Xian's lips curled up into a mocking smile. You can ask Pei Xing whether it's true or not. As the person involved, he should know better than anyone else. The topic was once again thrown to Pei Xing. Pei Xing's eyes narrowed, and his expression was cold. There wasn't a trace of respect in his eyes when he looked at Huang Fujiantian. No matter who activated it, it has nothing to do with you. I, Pei Xing, am surnamed Pei, and I don't know your so-called Huangfu clan. After saying that, he raised his wrist. He stared unblinkingly at his wrist, at the hand that was covered with wrinkles. Let go. It was obvious that Pei Xing's emotions were very unstable at the moment. Stinking kid. Huang Fujiantian was stunned by Pei Xing's gaze, and his white brows knit together tightly as he wanted to berate Pei Xing. But in the next instant, a slight gust of wind attacked. Then, his hand that was clasping Pei Xing's wrist was released by a gentle force. Huang Fujiantian saw the young girl's bright and beautiful figure squeezing into the crowd. He loosened his grip on Pei Xing. Pei Xing was pushed away by the girl. The young girl's slender figure blocked in front of Pei Xing. She looked at Huang Fujiantian indifferently with a pair of cold and enchanting eyes. Huang Fujiantian had always been in a high position. He had almost never met with such an attitude. Now he was being targeted time and time again by a young lady. Chapter 3862. Yi Qing Luo naturally felt the fury in Huang Fujiantian's eyes when he looked at her. She didn't really care. She had her own man as her backer. Even if Huang Fujiantian was truly enraged, she wasn't worried that it would blow up. After all, her family's Xian's reputation was still resounding. Yes, that's right, she's a bully. Was she stupid? Why wouldn't he hug a thigh? Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she met Huang Fujiantian's eyes without any fear as she smiled sweetly. He knows who was the one who stimulated his potential, and I believe you all have a way to verify it. As for the few of you from the Huangfu family, you came all the way to the Earth domain, and even old Master Huangfu came personally. This indeed shows your sincerity. However, how can old Master be sure that Pei Xing really wants to go back with you? She paused for a moment, then sneered. You said that you want to bring Pei Xing back to the Huangfu family. Does that mean that Pei Xing has to give up everything that he has fought for in the land and go back with you? Why? Yi Qing Luo's words were impolite and straightforward. Huang Fujiantian's face darkened with a swoosh. Yi Qing Luo gave a ridiculing laugh as she continued, just based on the fact that you think he's a collateral bloodline of the Huangfu family. Just because you think he activated the Huangfu bloodline. So he has to return to the Huangfu clan. Miss Yi. Huangfu Dongyu shouted sternly with a gloomy face, don't think that you can be so unscrupulous just because you have the support of His Majesty. This is the Huangfu family's old master after all. Be more polite with your words. He stood up, his eyes filled with anger. The way he looked at Yi Qing Luo was as though he was looking at an enemy. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but let out a ha sound as her eyes were filled with ridicule. You should be glad that you're from the Huangfu family, otherwise I'll just rely on my Xian to back me up, not even bothering about you, do you understand? Yi Qing Luo. Huangfu Fengyan was unable to restrain her anger as she totally didn't use her brain as she bellowed out Yi Qing Luo's full name from her throat. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she gave an unattainable smile. That was how he pretended to be. If you have the guts, come and bite me. Ha! Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule, as though it was pricked by needles, pricking Huangfu Fengyan's eyes. Huangfu Fengyan was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her demonic eyes, one gold and one ink, flashed with anger and jealousy. She bared her teeth and was just about to open her mouth to rebuke Yi Qing Luo. However, it was forcefully suppressed by Huangfu Zhentian's domineering voice. Miss Yi, you seem to have a lot of opinions about our Huangfu clan. Snatching someone from me just because of a disagreement, why can't I have any opinions? Yi Qing Luo chuckled as she retorted. Huangfu Zhentian placed his hands behind his back, and his aura had calmed down. However, the domineering dignity of a superior was still there. He didn't continue to tangle with Yi Qing Luo, but turned his sight towards Pei Xing. Lad, you're not willing to follow us back to Huangfu family. Pei Xing looked at Huangfu Zhentian. The emotions in his eyes were cold and complicated. Hiding too many emotions. When he heard Huangfu Zhentian's question, Pei Xing's fists suddenly clenched tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. He was practically gritting his teeth as he squeezed out word by word from the slits of his teeth, I don't want. Chapter 3863. Pei Xing, in the Earth realm, you'll forever be a nobody but. In the Huangfu family can give you the best resources and preferential treatment, allowing your ability to advance by leaps and bounds. Huangfu Zhentian's voice was steady and calm. As though he was tempting something. To ordinary people, this was indeed a temptation. In this era where the strong were revered and ability was supreme. To be able to obtain sufficient resources to advance by leaps and bounds. This was the target which all cultivators yearned for. No one was willing to be under others. But Huangfu Zhentian's temptation totally didn't make Pei Xing's expression change. He was unmoved as he continued his unfinished words, I'm not willing. There wasn't even a hint of hesitation in his tone. Huangfu Zhentian's expression sunk instantly, do you know what you're rejecting? I'm not interested. Pei Xing's eyes sparkled with dark golden light as a hurricane surged, I'm doing very well in the Earth realm. Since you've never appeared for the past 19 years, then. I don't need you in the future. His voice was tense as though he was suppressing something. That look of a trapped beast made one's heart palpitate. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she was just about to open her mouth to pacify Pei Xing's agitated emotions. The warm and soft little hand which was holding onto her suddenly withdrew from her palm. Gu Zixi had already jogged over and hugged Pei Xing from behind. The lady's delicate fragrance and the warmth of her hands made the raging emotions in Pei Xing's body gradually calm down. His tightly clenched fist slowly loosened as it covered the back of the lady's hand. His emotions had stabilized. The hurricane surging in his eyes had also stopped. He looked towards Huangfu Zhentian again. His emotions were extremely indifferent, please return. Huangfu Zhentian's brows creased tightly. His eyes sparkled with shrewd glint as he sized up the two who were hugging each other. In his heart, he seemed to be thinking about something. When Huangfu Fengyan saw this, she silently guessed Huangfu Zhentian's thoughts as she spoke out, Pei Xing, this is your only chance. What can you do in the Earth realm? Even if you feel that it's wrong for the Huangfu family to ignore you for so many years. But now, Grandpa has come to pick you up personally. What are you dissatisfied with? Every single word of his was mocking Pei Xing for being insensible. He secretly mocked Pei Xing for taking advantage of him. Without waiting for Pei Xing to speak, Huangfu Fengyan continued, or are you saying that you can't bear to part with that woman? For a woman like her to confess her love to a man in public and throw herself into his embrace without any sense of propriety, justice, and honor, such a woman isn't worthy of our Huangfu clan. Pei Xing didn't even bat an eyelid at Huangfu Fengyan's previous sentence. However, when Huangfu Fengyan spoke her next sentence, Huang Yu's eyes widened. Pei Xing's gaze flickered with coldness as she swiftly shot towards Huangfu Fengyan. Compared to a barbaric, rude, arrogant, despotic, and malicious woman like you, Zixi is 1,000 times better than you. You! Huangfu Fengyan's face twisted. He actually dared to compare that kind of woman with her. He even dared to humiliate her. Third, Miss Huangfu's words are really laughable. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as she spoke out in ridicule. My Zixi is merely bravely expressing her feelings, pouring out her love to the man whom she likes and also likes her. What's wrong with that? Chapter 3864. This sentence made Huangfu Fengyan so angry that her face turned red, and her eyes turned black. Her face was ferocious, and her demonic eyes flickered with resentment. Just as she was about to fight back in exasperation, Huangfu Jintian's steady voice interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words. Pei Xing, don't you want to know about your mother? Pei Xing suddenly raised his head and stared fixedly at Huangfu Jintian. Huangfu Jintian raised his white brows, looked at Pei Xing again, and repeated, come back to the Huangfu clan with me, and I will tell you everything about your mother. Also, why you're in the Earth domain, and the reason why we haven't looked for you for many years, I can tell you everything. Then, his gaze faintly glanced at Gu Zixi. Also, if you really like that woman, I agree to let you bring her back to the Huangfu clan. Pei Xing pursed his lips tightly, and his face was dark, but he didn't speak. But his pair of ink-like eyes revealed the emotions in the depths of his heart. Pei Xing, in this world, only the people of our Huangfu clan are your family. Could it be that you're really willing to part ways with us when you know you still have a family member alive? Huangfu Jintian seemed to understand Pei Xing's weakness. He began to use kinship to persuade Pei Xing. Every single word was like a sharp blade stabbing into Pei Xing's heart. His muscles tightened even more. On his handsome face, the veins on his forehead seemed as if they were about to burst out. The hand that pressed on the back of Gu Zixi's hand also unconsciously increased the strength. The woman's fair and delicate little hand was pinched until it turned red. But Gu Zixi didn't struggle, and let him pinch her hand. Her other hand gently wrapped around his waist, and her voice was gentle and full of firmness. Pei Xing, no matter where you go, I will follow you, so don't worry about me, just follow what you think in your heart. It had to be said that these 9 years of getting along made them the people who understood each other the best. Gu Zixi knew the deepest thoughts in Pei Xing's heart. Indeed, Huangfu Jintian used kinship correctly. He used Pei Xing's mother to make Pei Xing unable to resist. But because of this, Pei Xing's disgust towards Huangfu Jintian grew even deeper. The hatred in his heart grew even more intense. Because, old Master Huangfu. The girl's cold voice was filled with mockery. Gu Zixi immediately raised her head to look at Yiqing Luo. A pair of beautiful eyes flickered slightly. There were many things that she could not say on behalf of Pei Xing. Because Huangfu Jintian was Pei Xing's senior. She wanted to be with Pei Xing. There were many things that had to be considered. But Yiqing Luo was different. Yiqing Luo had the overlord and had no other relations with the Huangfu family. Many words Yiqing Luo could say. As expected, at the next instance, he heard Yiqing Luo continuing, Huangfu family's people have always loved to use this kind of method to threaten this junior. Yiqing Luo's expression was solemn and cold. There wasn't even a hint of a smile on his face. His eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. This was after the appearance of Huangfu Jintian. This was the first time Yiqing Luo's emotions had fluctuated so much. Yiqing Luo's interruption made Huangfu Zhentian frown. A pair of astute eyes looked at Yiqing Luo unhappily. Chapter 3865. Shut up. When Yiqing Luo finished her words, Huangfu Fengyan subconsciously stopped her with a stern shout. She pounced towards Yiqing Luo in a frenzy. Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Qifei glanced at each other, and a trace of panic simultaneously appeared on their faces. Miss Yi, grandfather only wants his grandson to return back to his original identity. Why do you have to be so overbearing? Huangfu Qifei's gentle brows flashed a treacherous cold glint. Huangfu Dongyu's face sunk as his expression turned gloomy and dangerous. Miss Yi, although the overlord is around and you can be unbridled, but before you speak or do anything, please consider the overlord. His words hinted at Dmo Xian to hear. He didn't want Dmo Xian to ruin his reputation because of a lady. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. He heard Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter rang. He looked towards the young lady. He saw the young lady leaping upwards as her figure agilely avoided Huangfu Fengyan's attack. Following that, like a butterfly, she pounced into the tall man's arms. Her dress fluttered as a brilliant red glow swept past. The young lady nestled in the man's arms as her brows rose and her smile was like a flower. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to have a blossoming rose at the corner of her eyes. She was devastatingly beautiful to the extreme. She was laughing. Her laughter was filled with ridicule and her gaze was filled with a thick sense of ridicule. Huangfu Dongyu's expression turned gloomier. His hands which were hanging by his sides were tightly clenched into fists. He suppressed his anger and was about to open his mouth. But he was interrupted by a miserable shriek. Ah! At the same time that sharp miserable shriek was heard. Something was flying towards him from the front. Huangfu Dongyu evaded and was about to avoid it. But old Master Huangfu's sleeve suddenly moved as a gust of wind surged over. That thing which was crashing over reduced its speed and crashed onto Huangfu Dongyu. Huangfu Dongyu then saw it clearly. The thing which crashed onto him, wasn't it his fourth sister Huangfu Fengyan? What a disgrace! Huangfu Zhentian brushed his sleeves as he stared at the both of them with a gloomy expression. Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan supported each other and stood up. Then, she heard the man's deep, dark, and slightly cold voice ring out, "Since you know this sovereign is here, you should respect this sovereign's woman a little more." His tone was clearly calm and indifferent, yet it made one's heart tremble. For no reason, one could hear the thick warning in his voice. "For the sake of old Master Huangfu, I'll spare your life. If you dare to touch Lil Luo again, I'll make sure you won't be able to return." Huangfu Fengyan's face was pale with fright, and her delicate body could not help but tremble. Huangfu Dongyu immediately steadied her. Immediately after, he felt a cold gaze that was as sharp as an ice blade fall on his body. His heart skipped a beat. He suddenly raised his head. His eyes met with a pair of peach blossom eyes that were as cold as the frost of December. "As for what young Master Huangfu said, you don't have to worry about it. Lil Luo doesn't need to consider for this sovereign at all. Whatever she wants to do, this sovereign will accompany her to do it. This sovereign loves to see her doing whatever she wants to do, saying whatever she wants to say." He enunciated each word in a clear voice. Everyone in the main hall heard it exceptionally clearly. These words, actually he could totally not need to say it. Yiqing Luo knew it too. But, he still said it. Because, he intentionally wanted the entire world to know how much he pampered her. Chapter 3866. Dmo Xian's words were like a tight slap on Huangfu Dongyu's face. Most importantly, Huangfu Dongyu could only endure the feeling of being slapped in the face and didn't dare to have any other emotions. after such a disturbance. A trace of relief flashed on Huangfu Qifei's refined face. He cleared his throat and said gently, "You're right, Dizun. Big Brother and Feng Yan were indeed too reckless. However, Big Brother is right. Grandfather only wants his family to be by his side. I'm sure Miss Yi wouldn't want Pei Xing to be separated from his family, right?" Huangfu Qifei asked in an amiable tone. But the contents of the words were all criticizing Yiqing Luo for being overbearing and not sensible. Yiqing Luo laughed when she heard that. His eyes were filled with mockery and a mocking, cold glint, which was flowing quickly. She ignored Huangfu Qifei's words. She just laughed sarcastically. His gaze was deep and mocking as he looked at them. That gaze that seemed to see through everything caused Huangfu Qifei's heart to be unable to help but tighten. It was as if she had already seen through their plan. A trace of imperceptible coldness flashed past Huangfu Qifei's handsome and warm face. He weighed his words in his mind. Just as he was about to open his mouth and change the topic, Huangfu Jintian lifted his feet and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The old man's movements. He had also successfully stopped Huangfu Qifei from speaking. The three people from the Huangfu clan looked at Huangfu Jintian almost at the same time. Even Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan didn't have the anger of being wronged on their faces. On the contrary, he seemed slightly flustered. Seeing that Huangfu Jintian didn't have any hesitation in his footsteps, Yiqingtang's eyes lit up. Huangfu Qifei clenched his fists and immediately chased after him, thinking of an excuse to stop the old man. However, before he could speak, Huangfu Jintian turned his gaze over. Huangfu Qifei's entire body froze on the spot. He stopped chasing after the old man. He stood stiffly on the spot and lowered his head. Huangfu Fengyan and Huangfu Dongyu anxiously stomped their feet and rushed over. They bumped into Huangfu Qifei and hinted something with their eyes. Huangfu Qifei didn't even raise his head. Huangfu Jintian stopped when he was just 3 steps away from Yiqing Luo. Although he was old. However, his domineering and majesty did not diminish, but instead increased. He fixed his gaze on Yiqing Luo. Looking at Yiqing Luo's smirk of ridicule. The muscles on his old face twitched, and a solemn look flashed across his eyes. "Miss Yi, it is indeed our Huangfu family's fault for coming to the Earth domain rashly and trying to take Pei Xing away without explaining everything clearly." He paused for a moment before his voice gradually deepened. As for the 3 people from the Huangfu family, it was the Huangfu family's fault for not disciplining them properly and causing them to make a fool of themselves. If Miss Yi is displeased, I apologize to Miss Yi on their behalf. This wave of reversal made Yiqing Luo dumbfounded. He could no longer maintain the sneer on his face. She furrowed her brows and looked at the old man in front of her, who had always been sitting at the top of the pyramid. For some reason, he felt that he was very dispirited at this moment. Yiqing Luo had just recovered from her daze. Then, Huangfu Jintian's actions shocked her to the point that she took 2 steps back. Both her hands grabbed hold of Dmo Xian's arm. She saw Huangfu Jintian standing in front of Yiqing Luo, as he shed away his unattainable high position and slowly lowered his noble head towards Yiqing Luo. Chapter 3867. Grandfather. Grandfather. When Huangfu Trio saw this, they couldn't help but cried out in shock. They couldn't believe that their own grandfather would actually lower his head to a young lady. Cough. That. She was used to Huangfu Jintian's overbearing and dignified look. Suddenly seeing Huangfu Jintian make such a move. Yiqing Luo was not only dazed, she was extremely shocked. "Old Master Huangfu, what are you doing?" Huangfu Jintian didn't raise his head as his voice carried a slight tremble. "Miss Yi, the Qiao Jin you mentioned. What's your relationship with him?" "Qiao Jin." Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she instantly understood. She was ridiculing Huangfu Zhentian for making use of Pei Xing's mother's matter to threaten Pei Xing. She also mentioned Xiao Jin. So, Huangfu Zhentian suddenly made such a move was because of Xiao Jin. She narrowed her eyes slightly. His gaze swept towards the three members of the Huangfu clan behind Huangfu Zhentian who had panicked expressions, and he suddenly understood something. She felt that. Earlier Huangfu Fengyan suddenly made a move on her and Huangfu Dongyu's accusation was somewhat strange. They knew that the overlord was around. One made a move and the other spoke rudely. Did they not want their lives anymore? Apparently, they were intentionally creating a disturbance. At that time, she was still thinking what these three were planning and trying to hide. After hearing Huangfu Zhentian's question, she finally understood. Those three. They were intentionally trying to make Old Master Huangfu ignore the name Xiao Jin. From Old Master Huangfu's actions and tone, Old Master Huangfu's feelings towards Xiao Jin were very deep and very real. But Xiao Jin seemed to have a huge hatred towards the Huangfu family. There was a high possibility that it was related to the trio from Huangfu family. As for Old Master Huangfu, he totally didn't know about it. Otherwise, those three wouldn't have such an expression. Before I answer your question, will Old Master Huangfu please answer my question first? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at Huangfu Zhentian. Huangfu Zhentian raised his head as something seemed to be surging in his eyes. Yiqing Luo asked, Xiao Jin and you, what's your relationship? He's my grandson. Huangfu Zhentian's voice trembled slightly as the emotions on his face were complicated. He is my most promising grandson, but... He paused, lowered his head, and did not continue speaking. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. Xiao Jin is my brother. Brother? Huangfu Zhentian suddenly raised his head with an excited expression. Then, is he also in the land? Where is he? Can I see him? Not a trace of falsehood could be discerned from Huangfu Zhentian's eyes. Yiqing Luo shook her head. He's not here. I know some things regarding him. Under Huangfu Zhentian's hopeful gaze, she continued, Jin Z doesn't have a good relationship with the Huangfu clan, right? It's not that he's unwilling to return to the Huangfu clan, but there's no place for him in the Huangfu clan. So, Old Master Huangfu, I don't really understand why you're so agitated after hearing Jin Zi's name. Why can't the Huangfu clan accept him? Huangfu Zhentian's eyes opened wide with excitement. He's the successor of the Huangfu clan. How could the Huangfu clan possibly not tolerate him? It's him. He wasn't willing to stay in the Huangfu clan because of his mother. All these, did you hear it from him personally, or someone else told you? Yiqing Luo pointed out something. Huangfu Zhentian's pupils contracted as his entire body tensed up, trembling slightly. Chapter 3868. Shut up. Huangfu Zhentian glanced coldly at Huangfu Fengyan, and his voice was low and cold. Don't think that I don't know what exactly the three of you are planning. I'll settle the score with you later. At any rate, Huangfu Zhentian was once the patriarch of the Huangfu clan. After his son inherited the position of the patriarch, he was able to maintain his prestige outside. It was sufficient to prove that Huangfu Zhentian wasn't an idiot. Yiqing Luo could tell the three of them's little tricks. He naturally sensed it as well. Looks like Xiao Jin's matter was also related to the three of them. When he thought up to here, Huangfu Zhentian's eyes sank slightly. Old man Huangfu. Yiqing Luo didn't want to get involved in their family matters. Moreover, this was obviously not the time to discuss family matters. The surrounding profounders from the various powers were watching a good show. Her words drew Huangfu Zhentian's attention to her. Jin Zi's matter involves too many people, and it also involves the internal relationships of your Huangfu clan. It's not appropriate for me to make any comments, and it's not appropriate for me to discuss too much with you. She looked at Pei Xing and continued, however, the Huangfu family still has to give Pei Xing an explanation, and you should respect his wishes, not yours. Perhaps it was because of her relationship with Qiao Jin. Huangfu Jintian actually didn't refute a single word. He looked at Pei Xing, and there was an apologetic look in his deep and bright eyes. You're right. I should respect his wishes. I shouldn't be like this. Back then, Qiao Jin, that child, was because, the words were on the tip of his tongue, but he stopped himself. Then, it turned into a heavy sigh. Pei Xing, I'll give you some time to consider. Do you want to leave with us or stay in the Earth domain? I'll respect your choice. 3 days later, I'll come to the Qiao residence again to hear your answer. After Huangfu Jintian finished speaking, his body trembled as he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the main hall. He turned around. His silhouette looked extremely lonely and dispirited. The 3 Huangfu siblings looked at Huangfu Jintian's back view and looked at Yiqing Luo. He wanted to say something. But when he thought of what Huangfu Jintian had said just now, he felt a chill run down his spine. They opened their mouths and closed them again. In the end, he only called out, "Grandpa," in a low voice and hurriedly followed up. When he reached the door of the main hall, Huangfu Jintian suddenly stopped moving. He just turned his body sideways. The direction of his eyes was looking towards Yiqing Luo's direction. "Miss Yi, I'm really sorry. If it's possible, I would like to see him." After that, Huangfu Jintian closed his eyes tightly. He closed his eyes. It made the wrinkles on his face even more obvious. He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to reply. In the blink of an eye, the few figures standing at the entrance of the main hall had already disappeared into thin air. Their speed was so fast that no one could clearly see how they left. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The surrounding people were so shocked that they cried out in surprise. After the incident with Huangfu Jintian, Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't have the mood to eat anymore. Various powerhouses cultivators were full of gossip and thoughts, but in front of Yiqing Luo and the others, they didn't dare to discuss about it. When Yiqing Luo and the rest left, no one stopped him. After returning to their courtyard, Yiqing Luo took a look at Pei Xing, who had been following behind her with a grave expression as his brows were tightly knitted. Chapter 3869. Pei Xing stood in front of Yiqing Luo as he lowered his head. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, his back suddenly stiffened as he raised his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. The expression on his face turned into one of panic and helplessness. I don't know. Him at this moment. He had completely dropped the explosive imposing manner when he was facing Huangfu Jintian in the main hall. His entire person seemed to have lost his target as he couldn't find his own direction. Even that flickering dark golden light in his eyes seemed to have lost its luster. Yiqing Luo looked at his look as she felt a little helpless. A person's character depended on that person's living environment. Like Pei Xing, after his father died, he was ridiculed by the citizens. All he could hear were those unbearable words and discussions. He had low self-esteem. Since young, he had low self-esteem. Other than the matters regarding the Treasures Exchange Hall, he wasn't able to make a decisive decision. He would ponder over it. He would consider everything. What's more, he wasn't able to make a decision. Facing many matters, he subconsciously wanted to escape. It could be said that for so many years, if Gu Zishi wasn't by his side. Not to mention the fact that he could keep the Treasures Exchange Hall till now. Perhaps he himself wouldn't be able to survive. So when she heard Pei Xing's lost tone, Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised at all. She stared straight at Pei Xing as her gaze was calm. This concerns your future, so you must think clearly. No one can give you the answer that you want the most. Her words paused slightly as her vision looked towards the lady beside Pei Xing as she added another sentence. Zishi can't give you an answer either. Pei Xing opened his mouth wanting to say something, but when his mouth opened, his mind went blank. He pursed his lips tightly as his face turned green. Gu Zishi, who was beside him, held his hand tightly as her fingers squeezed hard. Pei Xing looked at her. She smiled as her brows arched as she looked at him. As though she was consoling him. Zishi. Pei Xing lowered his eyelids as he opened his mouth bitterly. His face was filled with a lost and helpless expression. His eyes also became dim and lifeless. His voice was filled with helplessness. He looked exactly like a puppy. However, Pei Xing didn't even realize it. He had already changed the way he addressed Gu Zishi. She was no longer his little sister. Gu Zishi was obviously in a good mood. The feelings that he had been secretly in love with for so many years had finally received a response. He had finally walked out of the darkness and into the light. He could finally look at Pei Xing openly and say, "I like you." These actions required a great deal of courage. She finally did it. She finally got the answer she wanted. Furthermore, she understood Pei Xing. Although Pei Xing's entire body was filled with hostility when facing Huangfu Zhentian, Pei Xing didn't dare to underestimate him. But, she knew. He knew that Pei Xing was happy in the depths of her heart. Because in this world, at least there were still his relatives who were related to him by blood. Even if he was angry at the Huangfu clan for not caring about his mother and him for so many years, in the end, his heart was still happy. Otherwise, with Pei Xing's disposition, he would definitely be extremely resolute and refuse Huangfu Zhentian. Chapter 3870. Pei Xing's body stiffened. He wanted to retract his hand, which was intertwined with the lady's fingers. But it was held tightly by the lady. Pei Xing lowered his head and looked at his wide palm, that fair and soft skin. His heart suddenly started to race. From this angle, Gu Zishi could totally see his reddened ears. The smile in Gu Zishi's eyes deepened as she held his hand and placed it in front of her chest. A pair of beautiful eyes, moist and filled with tenderness, looked at him with a smile as she continued to speak word by word. "You will never be alone." Pei Xing's pupils shrank abruptly. That big palm which was held tightly by the lady. Subconsciously, he held the lady's hand. He gripped it tightly. In his eyes, the dark golden glow once again regained its original brilliance. Zishi. Pei Xing's heart suddenly seemed to be filled with some kind of energy. It was no longer that empty and pale feeling, totally not knowing what he was thinking about. Ah, Luo. When Pei Xing looked at Yiqing Luo again, the expression on his face was no longer in a daze. Even the tone which he spoke had become more solemn. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at him. Pei Xing continued, "Huangfu. Old master's words, do you think, can be trusted?" In the end, he still couldn't call out the term grandfather. Yiqing Luo replied very quickly, "What aspect are you asking about?" "That is. He wants to bring me, and that friend of yours called Xiao Jin, back to Huangfu family, is that true?" After Pei Xing asked this question, he hurriedly added another sentence, "I know, this choice must be made by myself. I just want to confirm. If you're asking about this aspect, I think it's true." Yiqing Luo placed one hand on the stone table, as her slender fingers slightly curled up, caressing the table. Following the movement of her fingertips, the expression on her face became even more indifferent. Generally speaking, large aristocratic families will indeed not allow their own bloodline to wander outside. After all, this kind of matter involves many unknown factors. For example, other aristocratic families know that their bloodline has wandered outside. Making use of this point to create trouble will cause some unnecessary trouble. For example, if people from other aristocratic families knew about it, it would greatly affect the reputation of the family. For example, if a member of the bloodline who has wandered outside marries someone else and gives birth to a child, then the bloodline they leave behind will spread further and further. If something were to happen, it could easily affect the entire clan. Yiqing Luo consecutively gave a few examples. Seeing that Pei Xing's expression had turned extremely ugly, she softened her tone. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that old Master Huangfu is worried about the bloodline of the Huangfu family and doesn't want to see the bloodline of the Huangfu family suffering outside. After all, you're someone who has awakened the Huangfu clan's bloodline. Your eyes are very eye-catching. If the enemies of the Huangfu clan know of your existence, it's very likely that they'll come looking for you. Therefore, the summary above indicates that Grandpa Huangfu's desire to take you back to the Huangfu family is absolutely real. Yiqing Luo's words didn't make Pei Xing's expression turn better, instead it made Pei Xing's expression turn even uglier. Yiqing Luo could tell, but she didn't intentionally bring it up. It was as if she did not see his expression. He waited for a while. Chapter 3871. For example, to give you resources to allow you to advance by leaps and bounds. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Such words, even without Yiqing Luo's reminder. Pei Xing could guess it himself. This was just a gimmick from the Huangfu clan. Pei Xing didn't know much about the Huangfu clan. However, he also knew that the Huangfu family was one of the 4 great families in the Heaven Realm. This kind of aristocratic family was full of capable people. His descendants were all at the top of the clan. He was from a branch family and had never received any training since he was young. It was only now that he had awakened the Huangfu bloodline. Apart from the fact that half of his blood belonged to the Huangfu family, he had no feelings for them whatsoever. How could the Huangfu family really waste their so-called resources on an outsider like him? That's right, outsiders. To the Huangfu family. He, Pei Xing, was an outsider. Pei Xing's eyes flickered, and he asked again, then, is there something between that friend of yours and the Huangfu family? Why is he unwilling to return to the Huangfu clan? She looked at Huangfu Jintian's expression and attitude when he mentioned Xiao Jin. Pei Xing could see it too. Huangfu Jintian was very concerned about that person called Xiao Jin. He noticed that the man's name had been mentioned. In Huangfu Jintian's eyes, he didn't exist at all. They are more complicated than you. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tapped lightly on the table as she said, he's not returning to Huangfu family, not because he's unwilling, but someone doesn't want him to go back. Or rather, on the surface, she wanted him to return. But once he really went back, those who resisted would think of all sorts of ways to decapitate him. Without hesitation, Pei Xing blurted out, you mean the 3 young masters and daughters of the Huangfu clan? Not just that. It was absolutely impossible for those 3 to suppress Xiao Jin in the Huangfu clan. After all, Xiao Jin was the only successor of the Huangfu clan. If there wasn't a mastermind behind all of this, it would be impossible. So, the things behind this were very complicated. Once things got complicated, it would be even more difficult to deal with. Xiao Jin's matter is totally different from yours, so there's no value for reference. Yiqing Luo raised her head, as her eyes looked at Pei Xing calmly. Suddenly, her fingers that were tapping on the table paused. The voice suddenly stopped. This inexplicably caused a certain amount of pressure in Pei Xing's heart. His entire body tensed up as his eyes stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo's hand which was placed on the table. However, regardless of whether you want to follow Old Master Huangfu to the Huangfu clan, you must be careful of those three people. If you're harmed, Old Master Huangfu might not uphold justice for you. Yiqing Luo's voice was suppressed to a very low and deep voice. This kind of voice caused Pei Xing's emotions to tighten. His heart thumped uncontrollably. Yiqing Luo's face was cold and her calm emotions had not dissipated. She slowly stood up. Even though he was sitting down, his aura was already 2.8 meters tall. This time he stood up. His aura was fully unleashed. It caused Pei Xing to freeze on the spot, not daring to move. Pei Xing, I'll still say the same thing. This is your own life, no one can help you make the decision. Yiqing Luo's voice was calm and steady, every word was enunciated clearly. There's no need for you to lower yourself in front of me, and no need to worry that you'll make the wrong choice, disappoint me, etc. To put it bluntly, I'm not anyone to you, we're just friends, just partners. The second anniversary, you ask and I answer, long review activity had ended. There were a total of 4 Mo Jiabao who took part. Gujiu, Mo Jiabao Gujiu, happy second anniversary of dethroning the 7 emperors. Mo Axayan, Mo Jiabao Mo Axayan, happy second anniversary of dethroning the 7 emperors. Familiar face baby, Mo Jiabao familiar face baby. Time is not old, Mo pavilion will not disperse. Ruo Qin, Mo Jiabao Ruo Qin, having met you, regretted not having met earlier. Time is not old, Mo pavilion will not disperse. There were a total of 4 babies and very few people took part. Moreover, the long reviews written by the 4 babies made me very touched. Made me have the guts. To have so many Mo Jiabao who love me, in this lifetime, I will never regret entering this profession. The 4 babies above can add my private account, the book review is pinned to the top of the comments, please take the initiative to add me, 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 please take the initiative to add me. Then provide me with the character design of your choice, I can choose 2 character designs, and the address. The deadline is August 10th before midnight. I'll go and customize the peripheral pillows on the 11th and send them over to you. Chapter 3872. Partner, do you understand? Yiqing Luo looked into his eyes as she asked word by word. Pei Xing's pupils shrunk slightly. Yiqing Luo continued, a partner doesn't ask for any benefits, just staying by your side and supporting any decision you make. Everything you do, and what you want to do, is related to your own future, you don't need to look at my face. Perhaps it was because her aura was too strong. Or perhaps it was because her appearance had saved the treasures exchange hall and changed his fate. So when Pei Xing was in front of her, there was a feeling as though he was inferior to her. She was clearly very gentle, okay? Why did it seem as though she was a vicious person? When Pei Xing heard that, he shuddered as he looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Ah Xing, you still have 3 days to consider. You can consider carefully and ask yourself clearly what you really want. Yiqing Luo softened her tone. Pei Xing's character had already been set and she didn't think of changing his character. She only stood on a friend's point of view, helping him to analyze the situation clearly. Choosing kinship means giving up freedom, and also learning how to survive in a large family. Freedom of choice, then. After we part ways 3 days later, you might not be able to see anyone from the Huangfu family until you die. Pei Xing slowly lowered his head. His brows were filled with struggling melancholy. Yiqing Luo took a look at Gu Zixi and exchanged glances with her. She held the man's arm as her lips curled slightly. I'll give you some quiet space to think about it. She pulled Dmo Xian and the rest of the brothers as they left the courtyard, leaving the quiet to Pei Xing and Gu Zixi. With Gu Zixi around, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid that Pei Xing would confine himself in a predicament. After all, Gu Zishi wasn't an ordinary person. After dismissing the bunch of brothers who joined in the fun, Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian back to the room. Not waiting for Dmo Xian to open his mouth, she frowned in displeasure as she put on a straight face. I asked you to rest properly but you didn't. After coaxing me to sleep, you sneaked out by yourself. Her little lips pouted as she stretched out her hand and grabbed Dmo Xian's collar, pulling the man in front of her. The man's handsome face was very close to her. His face was smooth and exquisite, and his long and narrow peach blossom eyes exuded a demonic charm. Yiqing Luo maintained her composure, determined not to be captivated by his beauty. Speak. Did you sneak out to have an affair? Dmo Xian's brows were filled with tenderness and pampering. His pupils were as deep as ink, like a deep pool, flickering with a few threads of dark light. Yiqing Luo was stared at by his blatant gaze. He felt his whole body heating up. Her cheeks were also unconsciously dyed crimson. You. What are you laughing at? What are you looking at? Don't try to bluff your way through. You cheated on me, didn't you? Yiqing Luo tried her best to make her voice sound more righteous and confident. After all, while she was asleep, the things he did to her, even though it was for her own good, were things that made his brothers ridicule him. Then, he sneaked off to a dangerous place. People who don't know how to rest. She had to scold him to wake him up. Queen Luo didn't notice at all. Her current mood was like a capricious wife facing her doting husband. Dmo Xian's smile became even more joyous. His entire face was like the blossoming of spring flowers, overflowing with elegance, making one unable to look away. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to be agitated by thunder. For a moment, the feeling of losing her soul made her dizzy. Chapter 3873. After a moment of dizziness, she was carried up by the waist. The next moment, her back was plastered on the soft bedding. The man's warm breath blew on the skin beside her ear. You want to know if I've cheated on you, right? When the man said this, his voice was low and hoarse, and his tone was very light. So light that it couldn't be heard, like a feather, teasing her heart. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled uncontrollably. Her little hand clutched the man's lapel tightly. Dmo Xian propped up both hands. That peerless handsome face was reflected in the young lady's pupils. The man's eyes were filled with a clear smile. That smile made her fall into a trance, as her heart and soul sank into his pampering. Unable to extricate herself. Unwilling to extricate herself. Looking at the person below him, her eyes were like silk, with a tender and sweet look. Dmo Xian's throat tightened. Even the color of his pupils had deepened by a lot. The corners of his lips were the same. There was an evil smile on his face. It made him look even more demonic and charming than before. He opened his mouth, his deep hoarse voice was as mellow as fine wine, making one intoxicated. I have a way to let you personally check whether I've cheated on you or not. His words fell. His kiss had already fallen. Warmth spread, gentle and affectionate. In the courtyard, only Pei Xing and Gu Zishi were left. The two of them didn't speak to break the silence. Gu Zishi just hugged Pei Xing, quietly accompanying him by his side. Not knowing how long had passed, Pei Xing, who was standing stiffly on the ground, finally had a reaction. He moved. The lady beside him gently held his big palm, giving him warmth. Pei Xing stood for a long time. His entire body was stiff. Not only his body was stiff, and his heart was stiff. After his palm was held, he stiffened his neck and turned his head, seeing the lady beside him. His voice was bitter and slightly hoarse. Zishi. I'm here. Gu Zishi gave him a gentle smile, her pretty face also had a gentle smile. Only, Pei Xing could see the tiredness between her brows, and the redness in her eyes. Pei Xing's heart seemed to have been hit by something heavily. Subconsciously, he held Gu Zixi small hand. There were vortexes swirling in his eyes. His emotions fluctuated greatly. Gu Zixi felt a little pain from his grip. She was slightly puzzled and called out softly, "Xing." Pei Xing suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. Gu Zixi's face crashed into his chest. Pei Xing was not gentle at all. Moreover, his face hurt a little. However, this bit of pain was nothing to Gu Zixi. An immense sense of joy enveloped her body and mind. This was Pei Xing's first time using such a method to hold her in his arms. The man buried his head in the hollow of her neck. When he opened his mouth, there was a spurt of air. Very hot, very scorching. This was the first time they were so close to each other. The man's hoarse and pained voice rang in her ears. "Zixi, do you really not regret it?" His voice was helpless and at a loss. Word by word, he spat them out. It was as if he had used up all his strength and courage. Gu Zixi buried herself in his arms and shook her head vigorously. Pei Xing asked again, "Don't you regret your choice?" Gu Zixi still shook her head. "I'm a useless man. I'm not strong, I feel inferior, and I retreat easily. I don't even dare to choose my own life. I don't even have half of your courage." Chapter 38-74. In the end, he tightened his arms a little. His voice became dignified and tense. "Do you really not regret being like this?" Pei Xing had just finished his question. Suddenly, his neck was hooked by a soft arm. His head was slightly tilted forward. Then, his nose was filled with the fragrance of a woman. Something warm and soft covered his lips. It was a light touch. The woman had already moved back a little. Her gentle voice was like the most moving melody in the world, drifting into his ears. "I don't regret it. From the first time we met, I decided that I will be with you in this life. So, no matter what kind of person you are, I will love you." She hooked her arms around his neck. Their foreheads touched each other's. Gu Zixi's pretty face was like a peach blossom. "Moreover, I know what kind of person you are, better than you know yourself. What are you worried about?" This sentence was definitely not an exaggeration. Who in the world understood him the best? Gu Zixi. Pei Xing's face turned slightly red. He tightened his grip on Gu Zixi's arms. Gu Zixi's eyes lit up with a sweet smile when she saw that. She stroked his face with her little hand and said with a smile, "Don't be so unconfident. No matter what, you just have to remember that you still have me. That's enough." Zixi, Pei Xing's eyes turned red. He suddenly pressed his big palm on Gu Zixi's head. A fierce kiss landed on her. His initiative had clearly expressed his feelings. Although both of them were in love for the first time. But in the depths of love, many things had already followed their instincts. His kiss landed. Gu Zixi leaned in his arms and panted softly. "Xing, let's go back to the treasure trading hall. We'll come back when you've made up your mind." Gu Zixi's cheeks were red as she panted. Pei Xing hummed in acknowledgement. Then, he hugged Gu Zixi's waist tightly in his arms. Gu Zixi was so shocked that she immediately reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck. However, both of them were people who had been frozen in the same position for a long time. With this force, Pei Xing's feet felt numb after not moving for a long time. Before he could take a step, he staggered and fell to the ground with Gu Zixi in his arms. "Ah!" Gu Zixi exclaimed. Fortunately, Pei Xing reacted quickly enough. When he felt his body stiffen, he immediately lifted Gu Zixi body. This fall, Gu Zixi basically fell into Pei Xing's arms. After the two of them fell to the ground, they hurriedly sat up straight. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Both of them asked at the same time. He was still constantly checking if the other party was injured. When he heard the other party's question, both of them were taken aback. Then he saw that both of them had their hands on each other's body. Instantly, both of them laughed. In the dark, Zhou Mo, who was crouching on a tree and watching the show with Kitty Lee in his arms, looked at the two people who were giggling foolishly. He clicked his tongue and shook his head. What a pair of idiots. I'm obviously very loving, okay? Kitty Lee glared at him, then looked in the direction of Pei Xing and Gu Zixi. That is pure love. Unlike you, who has seen countless people and flirted with countless people, how would you understand this kind of love? Hearing that, Zhou Mo's red phoenix eyes rose. His slender fingers moved, hooked Kitty Lee's chin, and turned her to him. Little wildcat, where do you see that this young master has seen countless people? Kitty Lee was forced to meet Zhou Mo's eyes. When Zhou Mo asked this question, Chapter 3875. The cat's keen senses made Kitty Lee's black ears twitch. An invisible pressure came over. She shrunk her body and her tail started to stand up, as though he could predict Kitty Lee's next move. Just as Kitty Lee's petite figure was about to slip out of the man's embrace, Zhou Mo's palm flipped. Once again, he locked Kitty Lee in his palm. Following that, he increased his strength as he pressed her into his embrace. His low and hoarse voice had a fox-like charm. Why aren't you replying? This kind of charm was on Zhou Mo. But it didn't seem out of place. On the contrary, it made Kitty Lee's ears and tail stand up. Her little black tail coiled around Zhou Mo's wrist. The girl pretended to be fierce as her voice rang. What are you trying to do? Kitty Lee isn't afraid of you. If you dare to lay a hand on Kitty Lee, my sister loves me so much, she will definitely help me beat you up. Zhou Mo's thin lips curled as his smile became even more charming. But the corner of his eyes revealed a sense of danger. He bent down and leaned in close to her black ears. His thin lips moved. He gently blew a breath of air on it. Kitty Lee's ears twitched as her body started to tremble. You, frivolous man, you. Tell me clearly, how did I read so many people? Zhou Mo held on to this topic, not willing to let go. Kitty Lee's face flushed red. She was angry and also shy. Her little ears kept twitching. Her little body, which was curled up in Zhou Mo's embrace, softened by quite a bit. Zhou Mo's eyes deepened slightly. His gaze swept past the silly couple who were still giggling foolishly not too far away. He suddenly hooked his arm around Kitty Lee's waist and with a leap, he brought Kitty Lee and flew to another place. The wind blew mist beside her ear. The man's voice was extremely clear beside her ear at such a close distance. He said, "Little wild cat, the only woman who can move my heart is you alone. The only woman I am willing to be frivolous with, is only you." The blush on Kitty Lee's face was completely unable to dissipate. The next day, there were still cultivators from various powerhouses who came to the Qiao residence as guests. On the surface, it was to visit Patriarch Qiao. But in actual fact, it was to meet Yiqing Luo or Dmo Xian. The losses that the Earth Kingdom had suffered in this battle. All the major forces had suffered heavy losses. For a long time in the future, the major forces would be repairing the medium sun. As for Yiqing Luo's group, even without Dmo Xian's relationship, they also wanted to make friends. If he could form a good relationship with Yiqing Luo, It would definitely be of great use to his future development. Not to mention, Yiqing Luo had Dmo Xian as her backing. There was also the Red Clear Pavilion and the Underworld Palace. Now even the Huangfu family, one of the Heaven Realm's 4 great heavenly clans, had to be courteous to Yiqing Luo. From yesterday's banquet, Yiqing Luo and Old Master Huangfu's conversation could be heard. It seemed like the person whom Old Master Huangfu was looking for was Yiqing Luo's brother. The power behind this woman. It was so terrifying that it was suffocating. It could be said that the series of events that happened during the auction was the most important thing in the world. It had already made Yiqing Luo a legend in the large powerhouses' mouths. However, no matter how many profound practitioners from the major forces came, Yiqing Luo and the rest all used the excuse of recuperation to reject the visitation. Unless Patriarch Qiao personally invited him, Yiqing Luo would give him face as she led a group of people to attend. No matter what, he was Qiao Yinyan's father. No matter what, after Mo Yuying's matter was settled, perhaps Qiao Yinyan would become her brother-in-law. Chapter 3876. In addition, Yiqing Luo also knew that Patriarch Qiao had been so passionate towards her from the start, which was also the reason why Qiao Yinyan took care of her. It was because of Guiyu. That's right, it was teacher Guiyu. While she and the rest were heading towards the Earth boundary, Guiyu contacted his good brother in the Earth boundary, which was Patriarch Qiao. After praising her to the heavens, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. All sorts of hints, she was definitely the type that Qiao Yinyan liked, and could definitely become his daughter-in-law. Hence, Patriarch Qiao was so naive to be fooled. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Looking at Guiyu and Patriarch Qiao's character, now I know why the two of them became good brothers. But what made Yiqing Luo puzzled was, from yesterday till now, Qiao Yinyan was like a perverted idiot, hiding in a corner from time to time, using a resentful, painful, helpless and complicated gaze to stare at. Mo Yuying. Really? None. Time. None. Engraved. And it was at any location in the Qiao residence, no repeat locations. Mo Yuying didn't feel anything, because she totally didn't notice Qiao Yinyan's existence. Unless Yiqing Luo talked to her. The rest of the time, she was alone, immersed in her own thoughts, sitting there stiffly. Very obedient. Obedient, like a puppet without a soul. Empty, lifeless. But Yiqing Luo expressed that she was troubled. For example, if a person suddenly popped up from the side and stared at the person next to you with such a complicated gaze that made people's hearts tremble, it would be very difficult to imagine such a scene. Once, twice, thrice. How would you feel in your heart? Anyway, Yiqing Luo was going crazy. Several times she wanted to ask Qiao Yinyan to come over. Whatever it was, couldn't it be said clearly? Did he have to be so perverted? Was there something wrong with him? But, before she could open her mouth, Qiao Yinyan was like a ghost, disappearing. Yiqing Luo. This was the first time she knew. Qiao Yinyan looked like a high mountain flower. And he had such a special hobby. He was annoyed by the various profound practitioners of the major forces who came to visit him with all kinds of excuses, such as thanking him, giving him gifts, and so on. She was also flustered by Qiao Yinyan's perverted hobby. Yiqing Luo decisively pulled the group of people, preparing to head over to the treasures exchange hall. Because of the auction, Dmo Xian still had things to deal with. Jun Qingwu also went to help. After all, the historian of balance was involved. This matter would definitely blow up. People of high positions like them definitely had to deal with it. Kitty Lee wanted to follow. Zhou Mo, on the other hand, used other fun toys to kidnap Kitty Lee. In the end, only Mo Yuing, Gue Wu, Old Lai, and a few others were left, and they all went to the treasures gathering exchange house. Along the way, Old Lai had been sizing up the ghost marshal. He felt that Gue Wu was very familiar. However, he could not recall where he had seen it before. He just kept staring at it. Gue Wu's eyes were fixed on Old Lai, completely ignoring him. It was Yiqing Luo who couldn't stand it any longer as she patted Old Lai's arm. "Why are you staring at Master Gue Wu for? If I didn't know better, I would think that you've fallen for him." Lao Lai scratched his messy hair and frowned. "I just think, he looks familiar." Upon hearing those words, Gue Wu slightly raised his eyebrows. He took a cold glance and retracted his gaze. "This feeling is even more familiar." Lao Lai patted his head, "But I just can't recall where I've seen him before." "Think slowly, no hurry." Yiqing Luo shot a glance at Gue Wu's expressionless face. Chapter 3877. After listening to Yiqing Luo's words, Old Lai really leaned forward and stared at Gue Wu from a close distance, as though he couldn't wait to stick his eyes onto Gue Wu. Fortunately, Gue Wu's character was indifferent. He treated Old Lai as though he was nothing and totally ignored Old Lai's actions. If it was anyone else, to be stared at like this by Old Lai, he would probably have flown into a rage. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered with Old Lai as she hooked Mo Yuing, who was walking quietly behind her, and smiled. "Shadow is so obedient." Mo Yuing was hugged as her shoulder bumped into Yiqing Luo's arms. She blinked her eyes at Yiqing Luo, ? Yiqing Luo rubbed her furry head as she hooked her little body and continued to walk forward with a smile. Very quickly, the four of them arrived at the treasure exchange hall. Just arrived at the treasure exchange hall, Yiqing Luo almost thought that she had taken the wrong way, because there were at least hundreds of people crowding around the entrance of the treasure exchange hall. They were split into two teams. One team, everyone was holding various kinds of treasures in their hands. There were jade boxes, medicine bottles, big wooden boxes, weapons on their backs, etc. One team, empty-handed but with an anxious expression. There were some people who were holding crystal notes in their hands as they counted them. The common characteristic of the two teams was brocaded clothes and jade belt, fair and plump, extremely wealthy. What situation was this? This group of people came to the treasure exchange hall to deposit their auction items and to purchase trading items. When did the market in the treasure exchange hall become so good? The most important thing was, at this critical juncture when the Earth realm was suffering from heavy losses, there were still so many people who had the leisure to come to the treasure exchange hall. Those who are ambitious will not let go of any chance to build connections. Mo Yuing, who was hooked by her shoulder in her arm, said faintly. Yiqing Luo lowered her head and looked at the stiffened and emotionless person. She stretched out her hand and pinched her cheek. "Shadow is right." These people were indeed like what Mo Yuing said. It was obvious that he was here to do business at the treasures exchange hall. But in actual fact, everyone's motive was very clear. If it was in the past, the treasure exchange hall was. If you wanted to pass, you would have to make a detour. Now, even if Bao Bao won the honor of the best trading house in the auction fair with the beautifying cream, that wasn't to the extent of, with so many people surrounding the treasure house, not even a drop of water could leak through. The main reason was still because Pei Xing was a collateral descendant of the Huangfu clan, one of the four great clans in the heavenly world. Old Master Huangfu even came to welcome them personally. In everyone's eyes, Pei Xing would definitely follow the old man to the heavenly realm. If he had befriended Pei Xing before he left, he would have been delighted. Or perhaps, he wanted Pei Xing to owe him a favor. Once Pei Xing stabilized his position in the Huangfu family, this was a way out for the people of the Earth domain. Therefore, one after another, they came to the treasures gathering exchange to make their presence known. From the looks of it, Pei Xing's place was not as quiet as the Qiao mansion. A group of people were queuing up and craning their necks. From time to time, he would raise his arm to wipe the sweat off his forehead. They were a bunch of pampered people. It was basically not their turn to do things like lining up. However, this time was different. After all, they were here to make a good impression. Naturally, they had to do it personally so that they could show their sincerity. At the forefront, the people from both sides stuck close together as they craned their necks to look at the situation in the treasure exchange hall. Chapter 3878. The entrance of Treasure Gathering Hall was simply too small. The two of them stood at the entrance. There was basically no space. Just at this moment, suddenly, a hand reached over and pressed on their shoulders. With a little force, the two of them were forcibly pulled apart. The two of them who were impatient couldn't suppress the anger in their hearts. Can't you see that everyone is queuing up? Why are you cutting the queue? Get to the back of the queue. Don't break the rules. The two of them reached out to grab the hand on their shoulders. When they turned their heads, they saw an old and horrifying face. Especially the red bloodstain on the eye, as if flesh and blood were surging. The two of them were so shocked that they took a few steps back. The hand that was grabbing that person also flung it away. Get out of the way. That person clapped his hands and spat out two words coldly. The two of them looked at that person's face, then their gazes fell on the few figures behind that person. They were so scared that their faces turned pale, and they immediately moved to the side. While nodding and bowing, "Please, please, please come in," the man raised his head high and swaggered into the treasure exchange hall. The few people behind him also followed in, until the few figures walked through the door. The two people in the queue, this time, wiped the sweat off their foreheads and heaved a sigh of relief. Who are those people? Why aren't they queuing? Just because he said to give way, we have to give way. The people at the back of the queue didn't see the faces of those people clearly. They only saw that those people cut the queue and were even welcomed into the treasure exchange. They, who had queued for half a day, had complaints in their hearts. However, just as they opened their mouths to complain, someone immediately turned his head and looked at the few people with a face full of fear. "Shoo! Don't shout, if they hear you, you won't even be able to enter the treasure exchange today." The few people who were complaining frowned and craned their necks to look at the entrance of the Gathering Treasures exchange hall. They asked suspiciously, "Who are those people? Who have such great power?" It could be said that there were hundreds of people queuing outside, randomly pulling one out. They were all famous people in the Earth domain. Who else could make them show such frightened expressions? Did you see that old man just now? The one who walked in first is someone from Hell Palace. Hell Palace. The person who complained immediately turned pale. The terror of the Hell Palace was that the people inside were all lunatics. It was no wonder that the two people standing at the entrance would step aside and respectfully let the old man cut the queue. If it was them, they would rather let the people from the Underworld Palace cut the queue. He didn't want to provoke trouble from Hell Palace. Not just that. Someone shook his head and clicked his tongue. What's the purpose of you lining up at the Treasures Exchange Hall? Although everyone was well aware of it. But when asked this question, the few people who complained still shook their heads and didn't answer. That person did not pursue the matter. Instead, he said straightforwardly, "Didn't everyone come here to get to know Boss Pei of the Treasures Exchange? Did you see the lady in red who just went in? That young lady is Yiqing Luo. When the three words Yiqing Luo came out from that person's mouth. In the queue, there was a silence that lasted as long as 3 sides. Then, there was an explosion. Who was Yiqing Luo? She was a famous person now. How many people racked their brains to rush to the Qiao residence just to meet Yiqing Luo? They had not expected that Yiqing Luo actually came to the treasures exchange hall. No wonder those people automatically gave way. Chapter 3879. For this treasure-gathering exchange hall to have such a scene. It was all because of Yiqing Luo. At once, the hundreds of people queuing outside were all discussing about Yiqing Luo's legend. Their words were filled with admiration and envy towards Yiqing Luo. No one noticed. At the corner opposite the treasure-gathering exchange hall, a shadow was cast downwards. A slender figure could be seen faintly. When he heard those praises and flattery, he was stunned. Faintly that figure clenched her fists tightly. In the darkness, that pair of eyes was like a venomous snake, shining with a sinister glint. After Yiqing Luo and the rest stepped into the treasure-gathering exchange hall, they also heard those people's discussions outside. Her brows rose as her eyes were filled with ridicule. These people kept on praising and praising her, but it was merely done in front of so many people. More than that, he just wanted to please her. After all, her age was right there. Young ladies of this age, didn't they love that bit of praise and flattery? But in actual fact, what they were thinking in their hearts, whether they were convinced or not, that was something only they themselves knew. So those praises outside intentionally became louder and louder. Yiqing Luo totally ignored them. After she walked into the treasure gathering, she directly walked towards the direction of the counter. At the counter, stood 2 customers. One was here to register, to take part in the next round of the treasure gathering auction. The other was here to present treasures. The commotion outside was extremely loud. The few people inside naturally heard it clearly. When Yiqing Luo walked in, those 2 customers had already put on a smile, as they greeted Yiqing Luo politely. Behind the counter, the 2 busy people immediately raised their heads and looked towards Yiqing Luo. Gu Zixi took a look at Yiqing Luo, as she smiled and called out, "Ah Luo." She lowered her head again, as she continued to record the customer's name list. Perhaps it was because yesterday, Yiqing Luo's attitude towards Pei Xing was slightly solemn. On seeing Yiqing Luo, Pei Xing immediately raised his head anxiously, as his eyes looked at Yiqing Luo helplessly, as he speedily left. The booklet and brush in his hands dropped onto the ground. This look seemed like a student meeting his own form teacher. Yiqing Luo, what was going on? Did she look that fierce? Sheng. Gu Zixi heard the noise beside her and immediately looked at Pei Xing worriedly. When he saw the brush by Pei Xing's feet, he immediately bent over to pick it up. Zixi. I'm fine. Pei Xing sounded nervous. After that, he took a careful look at Yiqing Luo and immediately squatted down, helping her to pick up the things. The 2 of them picked up the items at the same time, stood up, and put them on the counter at the same time. Their hands collided. After a short pause, the 2 of them raised their heads at the same time and looked at each other. Soon after, a large blush spread on their faces. At the same time, the 2 of them quickly retracted their hands as if they had touched a flame. With a bashful look, she averted her gaze. Yiqing Luo and the rest. Baffled, were they fed another mouthful of dog food? The other 3 didn't have much of a reaction. It was mainly Yiqing Luo who was watching this dramatic scene. For some reason, her mind was filled with images of the pure romance of youth on campus. It seemed that the style was a little wrong. Wasn't this couple a little too silly? Chapter 3880. Sheng. Zishi. Yo-ho, that voice which was filled with obvious ridicule intentionally dragged out the last syllable. It made that pair of pure young man and woman flushed red instantly. Looking at their looks, Yiqing Luo also knew that these two had absolutely confirmed their relationship. Gu Zishi had waited for so many years. In any case, Pei Xing understood his inner thoughts. That was not a bad growth at all. Yiqing Luo walked towards the counter. The two guests tactfully made way for him. Yiqing Luo smiled at the both of them. Carry on with your work, we're just here to have a chat with Pei Xing. Saying that, she waved to Old Lai. Old Lai, I'll leave this task to you. Old Lai. She didn't mention anything about letting him be a free laborer. No matter how unwilling he was in his heart or on his face. But looking at Yiqing Luo's smiling eyes, his body still obediently walked to the side of the counter. Previously when they stayed at the treasure gathering, Old Lai and Qiao Yinyan helped out at the treasure gathering. When they did things, they wouldn't be flustered. Old Lai replaced Pei Xing's position and Yiqing Luo waved her hand, asking Pei Xing and Gu Zishi to come over to rest. Those two customers looked at Pei Xing who left the counter and looked at Old Lai who was holding the brush with an impatient look. They were so scared that their sweat soaked their clothes. But under Old Lai's threatening gaze, they were practically trembling as they completed their own transaction. On the other side, the two of them who had been busy for the entire morning finally had some time to rest. They had just walked to the side and sat down. Pei Xing's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was still filled with that reserved feeling. Yiqing Luo sighed, have you forgotten what I said to you yesterday? Between us, we are friends, partners, not some superior and subordinate. Why are you so afraid of me? Pei Xing's hand which was holding the teacup tightened as his eyelashes trembled unnaturally. I. His voice was slightly low. Speaking till the end, his entire head lowered. The aura from you is too strong. Yiqing Luo. Her aura was 2 meters 8. How could he be scared to this extent? It seemed that she was very cute in front of her brothers, okay? Gu Zishi couldn't help but laughed as she shook her head at Yiqing Luo. There's no need to specially correct his thinking. It's good that he's afraid of you. At least you can control him. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at Pei Xing. This feeling makes it seem as though I'm very fiendish. My aura is too strong, so why isn't Zishi afraid of me? Pei Xing glanced at Gu Zishi and blushed again. This innocent look really made Yiqing Luo have an impulse to tease her. But he thought of Pei Xing's character. She resisted the urge. Don't be teased by her. Pei Xing started to question himself again. He wondered if he was worthy of Gu Zishi, and then he fell into self-denial. After all, to Pei Xing, her aura was too strong. Look at how nervous you are. Gu Zishi couldn't help but stretched out her hand as she poked Pei Xing's shoulder and looked towards Yiqing Luo as she asked, you came running over to gather treasures. Is it to hide from those guests who had gone to Qiao residence to visit? Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue, you really dote on your Xing. Gu Zishi's question was obviously telling Pei Xing. She came over to gather treasures, not to ask for an answer as to whether he was going to Heaven Realm or staying in Earth Realm. But to hide from the various powerhouses cultivators. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.